The following program deals with a controversial
subject.
The theories expressed are not the only possible interpretation.
The viewer is invited to make a judgment based on all available information.
the top talents in the comic book business are here to tell everything they know.
Welcome, everybody, to another Tuesday night here on Beyond Wednesdays, another Industry of Comics show, episode 71 of the Industry of
The
Comics.
year I was born.
There you go. So we have a lot to talk about tonight. Of course, rest in peace, the late, great Jim Shooter. We're going to talk about him, his legacy, some stories, and we'll get into that. We're going to talk. There's some big news in the Industry of Comics that just dropped about the fate of Dynamite Publishing and what they're going through with the Diamond bankruptcy, and it's not cool at all. And we got a bunch of stuff we're going to get into, but most of the show tonight is going to be talking about the big story, a very positive story, which is the grand opening of Jesse James Comics in Deland, Florida.
Yes, very exciting. A lot of work. You stay to 3 a.m. You're back at 8 a.m, and you're just pounding out tables and you're pounding out product. And even as a overstreet advisor doing this 43 years, you learn that you still got to look up books. That's the crazy part. You're still looking up books and you're going, what the heck? I was going to put this in the dollar bin. So it's very interesting. I don't think you get nervous with the grand opening about how many people are going to show up. I think you're more focused on, if people show up, will they be happy with what they see? So I only had about 25% of my product out. But because we had Spears at the event, it kind of overshadowed that. I mean, these were die-hard freaking Spears fans. I think just amazing to see people out at 7 a.m. ready to roll. We do use the number system. So when Shannon called me and said, get your ass into work, I'm like, I just got home 2 hours ago. What are you talking about? She's like, there's already a line. We were able to give them numbers so they can go out and do the things and come back at the cool time. It's amazing. I did, even standing next to him, I didn't realize how tall he was until I see
first thing
picture.
I noticed. Yeah.
It was crazy. We had Dennis came out from Detroit. We had a couple people come out from South Carolina. Seattle. Yeah, someone came out from Seattle. That was a great thing because I've known him for about 30 years. It was a great thing to see these diehard folks coming out supporting Spears, and they brought some awesome freaking books to sign. It was amazing to see these people. A lot of people you guys know that are part of the industry. So it's kind of cool to have people like Dennis and other friends come out and support the show. Shannon, Melissa, obviously. He was so busy. It was a hello. All right. Thanks for coming in. That's how busy it was. We were able to have dinner with Dennis and my great friend Gary from Nordstrom. Those two had a great loud conversation, I can tell you. I don't know who talks louder. That was crazy. I was like, Dennis is pretty loud. And then Gary's like even louder. And I don't know if Dennis was competing to see who was going to be louder. And then those great guys.
Got the beachside, the old school beachside hobbies crew with James from Hive Comics. You got Webby, Mello, beachside. Good guys right there, man. Those guys are have really done a good job of being a new breed of online retailers. Started off at Whatnot when Whatnot first started, and Webby has really done a good job of, making a nice little footprint for himself over at eBay Live. It's amazing to see all four of these guys right here, continue to be part of this industry and do good stuff. So very, very cool.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dennis.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say the cool thing about this generation is that's our new exclusive. We finally got today, so that'll be coming out, James. When we grew up in this industry, you go to conventions and what do people do? They hand you a card. The problem is that card goes in with 50 other cards. Right? And then you get home and you're too tired. And what you do, you throw those 50 cards in a box. And then at some point down the road, you email them. But it's 4 months down the road, 5 months down the road. They might email you. What's great about this generation is you meet them. And if you're not friends with them, you're getting a friend request.
Yeah.
Like an hour after the show, and you build that awesome relationship. And that's what is awesome about this new venture, going from a traditional comic book store in Arizona, 8,000 square feet. You almost thinking going down to 3,700 square feet. Oh, that's your downsizing. No, it's actually better because we're smarter. One of the things I wanted to talk about real fast also was when you're game planning and you're playing stuff in the store, to believe it or not, my number one selling item when we took all our numbers Sunday night ended up being vintage shirts. That is amazing to think that vintage shirts, listening to Bryan saying, yeah, whatever, we'll sell a couple of shirts. That was our number one selling item. We sold over 100 shirts in 3 days, which is nutty. So we are in a new world where a comic book store can be a collectible store, can be a hangout store. You're providing collectible therapy, which I might have to change from comic book therapy to collectible therapy. And then it's just having fun. But Dennis, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to give my perspective because, obviously Jesse's going to sugarcoat his own review. So I'm going to give the review. Okay. So first of all, I went through hell to get there. Storms in Detroit, delay. By the time I got to Orlando, the rental car company I used was already closed. So I had to cancel that reservation, open a new one, wait 2 hours in line at Thrifty to get a crappy EV car that, Jesse, I haven't even told you how that ended. It said I had 90 miles from Daytona to Orlando, and it said I was only 60 miles away. And
Thrifty. Did you get ice cream with that?
No, that was the only place that was open at 12:30 when my plane landed.
Okay.
So it runs out of juice 20 miles from the airport. And then I had an entire ordeal with the plane coming away from Orlando to get back to Detroit. So just keep it in perspective that I spent close to 20 hours to get to Jesse's store, getting there and going back. I pulled up at like 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, and I had just missed Jesse by 30 minutes. And sure enough, Jesse had ladders out on the floor. He was working all the way up until 5 a.m. And actually, if you go back to my one picture before the thing, you can see. Go back a couple. Maybe this isn't it. Okay, but Jesse had the store 99% done. Right there, yeah. You can look, it's a fully stocked store at 5 a.m. that night. Okay. And 3 hours later, the line is 50 people long. Okay. 3 hours after that, he's got 100 people in his store. Right. So it was absolutely fabulous to support my brother in his new ventures. I even popped in. I talked to a couple customers for him while he was busy. I went back and talked to Shannon to get a couple waters to take over to Melissa and to Mark because they were pretty parched. It was a little hot in that window, but that's because Jesse hasn't got his decals in yet.
Yeah.
But I will say one thing. That crowd down there is very happy to see a fresh, interesting, non-typical comic store moving into that area. Every person I talked to listed 5 or 6 stores that they visit on a regular basis. Remember that one guy, John, that we talked to out front? Yep. John has only been to 2 events in his entire life of collecting comics. Okay. He goes to 4 to 5 stores a week, but he has only been to his 2nd event ever, and it was Jesse's. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was fun. It was interesting, shaking hands. You know, when you're in this business, you look at a lot of people and you're like, I don't know these people yet, but they know you because of your social awareness, because of this show. Dennis will tell you how many people said to us, oh yeah, watch your show. It was crazy.
Probably 20 of those 100 people that were in and out of that store that day were fans of the show and watch it regularly.
Right, exactly. And so I think, you know, we're in this new world where you control your business, you control how you want to be perceived, and then your customers decide if they want to open up your wallet or support your brand. And either or is great. I think if you could get people to support you socially, there's dollar value in that. And I think a lot of people miss out on that social value, that branding value, that marketing value, I think is very, very important.
Hell yeah, man. It's also, I'll tell you what's fun for me to watch. It's fun for me to watch Jesse, this longtime brick and mortar guy who up until about 2 years ago really didn't care much about social media or anything other than what was going on in his store. He didn't really care about, you know, any of the experiencers or influencers, or he was just set on his job at the store. To now see Jesse kind of like embracing the new styles and the new things, and you know, him realizing how important social media is, him realizing, you know, a lot of these younger cats and these influencers are part of the hobby and part of the industry, and you know, that's interesting to me. And I love seeing that, you know, anywhere. I love seeing the opposite end of it. I love seeing all the young cats, you know, like the people that we saw in those pictures, that, you know, meet Jesse and meet Dennis and hang out with these old school guys and you know, learn something, and vice versa. To me, that's the coolest part of all this. And like you say, Dennis, all the time with Gary Reed's thing, you know, give information freely, you know, give your experience freely. Yep. I keep on talking about this, you know, Thomas Sowell teaching, where he talks about how, you know, it's not about intelligence, it's about life lessons, and it's about what you learn throughout life. You can be the smartest person in the world but if you're only 15, you know, you're not going to know anything. And you could be the most book smart person in the world. It takes life lessons. It takes living through loss. It takes living through, you know, one business succeeding, another business failing, and all those life lessons that you learn is important. And we forget that a lot until we get to that stage in our life where we have those life lessons and we realize how important they are.
There's a great, it was a spoken word album, and it was, I can't remember the title of it, but it's Orson Welles, and it's Orson Welles talking to young people. And he's like, one of my favorite quote is, "You're young, I'm old. I know what it was like to be young, and I know what it's like to be old. You only know what it's like to be young." And I was playing that when I was 20 years old on college radio. Now, it was a lot hipper. It was like, you know, it had a music backbeat, and, you know, it was Orson Welles' voice with, like, you know, like interludes. But it stuck with me because I was like, yeah, I don't know what it's like to be old. And that's why I've always just talked and listened to as many people who are where I want to be when I want to get there, because I can learn more from them and their experience than I'll ever learn from people my own age that have done nothing.
Right. It's kind of like that one guy that you go to the convention, and even before the convention starts, he's already sold out his whole table, and he's just selling stuff. And at the last second, he's like, "Yeah, I sold out." And he goes online and said, "This is my 987th sellout." I can't remember what that guy's name is. What is that guy's name?
Oh God!
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, yeah. I think he's in chat.
Yeah. I think
We can't get him on the show, but
he'll be
welcome,
on. He said he really wants to come on, so we're gonna bug Rupp for a long time in the future. We're gonna have him on many times. One of the OGs. So appreciate you, Chris. So
yeah, what's cool about it is you always know the older guys that have pictures that are still in black and white, right? So he's showing this newspaper clip of him, like, I don't know, he's probably 16 or something in a comic book store, and it's this faded newspaper, right?
Well,
So
I live my life by the drill instructor, and a lot of the drill instructors use it. The Air Force uses a lead, follower, or get the fuck out of the way. There's only 3 options in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I ever told you this, Emmet. My father was a drill instructor, and I was born in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri.
Oh yeah, so you had a nice upbringing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh
Might
yeah.
be why I'm a little rebellious. Might be.
Yeah. I remember my dad was a Marine as well, Vietnam, machine gunner on a helicopter. So, he took me outside, punched me in the face, and he said, "Get your ass back in there and sell. Stop worrying about what the other stores are doing." I'm like, "You had to punch me in the face for that, right?" And he's like, "Absolutely."
woke you up, made you realize.
Yeah,
you remember
exactly.
it.
That was the whole reason. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
like, "Get your ass back in there. Why are you worried about what the guy's doing down the street?"
Now,
Don't make
me and
me
my
punch you again.
best friend in high school, Jack Nuzzo, we had the same teacher our freshman year, and we had him for 2 classes. And it was early in the morning. This guy's name was Mr. Coates, one of the greatest teachers I ever had. But he had one rule: never fall asleep in class. And I remember there was one Monday morning where I stayed up late watching Star Trek on PBS too late and Doctor Who. And I was dragging ass when I came into that class. And Mr. Coates had this perfect voice like this. And he would staccato everything he said to make sure he said it perfect at the exact same tone. And I just started, and Jack was 2 tables over from me. And Jack was just like, "Dude, I saw you leaning. I knew it was happening, but I couldn't do anything." And Mr. Coates would just keep his voice steady, and he would just walk through the class. And he had what we called the lead finger. And he would just cock his finger back and hit you square. This is back when teachers could hit students and get away with it.
Sure.
And he would hit you square in the 3rd eye. And you felt like Doctor Strange getting knocked out by the Ancient One. You would just be like, yeah, I'm listening to him, and I'm out. Bow! And you never fell asleep in his class again.
Yeah.
And it's one of those. Hey, it took a shock to the chakra to be able to tell you that, but you never fell asleep in Mr. Coates' class again.
Yep.
We had the perfect like caricature of like the retired drill instructor teacher. He was our wood shop guy, and Mr. Day. And if you didn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in the morning in his first class period, he would let you fucking have it, man. Let you have it. So anyways.
Yeah.
Kind of like Walter from Big Lebowski. My friends died face down in the mud so that you can stand up and read that.
Yeah. And you know what's funny is that kind of equates to the comic book world completely, because you do have those die-hard, it's all about reading the comic book. It's all about reading it's about reading the ads. It's about getting that next one. It's about how you log it into the page. It's like, dude, I just want to read a comic. I mean, that's cool. But there's it's Wednesday. Let's go. Wednesday Warrior Day. I'm here to get my books. Let me tell you about the 900 time that I own every single X-Force ever made. Right. And you get those customers that are kind of that drill sergeant mentality that they have been doing this for 40 years, 41 years and 6 weeks,
Yeah.
And I think that's what's awesome as you go through the generations of comic book fans, that you can listen to them and they'll tell you what generation they're from. And I think that's a very, very cool thing. We're getting older, and that 35 to 70-year-old is that next line of kind of offense, defense. So in the comic book,
should we segue into the tribute today?
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't get any more perfect than Jim Shooter.
Yeah.
He loved comic books. Loved them so much that when he found out his family could not sustain on their father's income, he started writing to the industry to try to get work writing comics.
Yep.
And lo and behold,
13 years old.
13 years old, he got accepted to write a story for DC. They published it when he was 14.
Yeah.
That money, what?
No, so what happened was at 13, he sent the stories in. DC actually wrote him back to buy the stories from him.
Yep.
That's innovative at a young age. Go ahead.
No, and it just reminded me, I had that kid that came into my store a couple of weeks ago, and he made the sale or he made the call, and he made the sale.
Yeah.
And it reminded me, I just kind of refreshed it for me with this guy. This was my editor-in-chief. He was the guy who made everything happen for 9 years at Marvel, and it was the 9 years I was buying almost everything.
It is also some of the best years of Marvel.
Yeah. Oh, not only is it the best years of Marvel, I think that the notion that they took a chance with Marvel Contest of Champions.
Well, and I wanted the reason other than he's just an icon, 60 years. He just hit his 60th year in comics, from 13 years old to 73-year-old on his deathbed. 60 years. Who's got that many years?
Yeah.
His story about creating one of the most beloved, they're beloved, but most people don't really know about them, but their fans of them are rabid. And that's the Legion of Superheroes, to create those at 13 years old and, be part of comics since he was 13. And that's not just reading comics.
Well,
that's like you guys says, he was in the industry.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But here's another, I just shot a video today about Jim. So, this is all fresh in my mind. He created Parasite. He revolutionized the Legion of Superheroes. He created them. He said to DC, "Hey guys, you guys have never had Superman and Flash race to find out which one's faster? That was an ongoing 20-year race that made millions for DC. But for this show in particular, do you know what his biggest contribution to the direct market is?
Dazzler.
So the industry was making some inroads, 1980s, and Bo Derek was being tapped to play Dazzler in 1980. Meanwhile, this is her at pinnacle of popularity. Playboy, what was the Tarzan movie?
Yeah.
She was in 10, wasn't that?
Perfect
10, Tarzan, just pinnacle of sex appeal. And they got her to sign on to be Dazzler. A nothing character that popped up, X-Men 130. And Jim was like, hey, let's try something new here. We got this direct market. Let's try something exclusive for them. No newsstands, no spinny racks, just comic book stores. And Dazzler #1 was only available in comic book shops.
Yep.
That this guy was a revolutionary idea man.
Secret Wars, Black Suit Spider-Man.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, he did the first miniseries for Marvel with
Contest of Champions.
So there was a risk factor there.
Valiant
saying, hey,
Comics.
Valiant. After Valiant, he did. Who was the two companies he did after
Defiant and Broadway?
That's right, Broadway. So yeah, I think it's a pivoting career, right? And I think that's what he will be known for going here, going there, and being part of history and all these publishers, these series that he was part of. If you look at the amount of books that he was part of, it's amazing to think that some of these creations he has done will be here 100 years from now.
Oh, definitely.
By far. I mean, it's crazy. And that, I think that's where you kind of look at some creators. You say, you're hot now, but will we know who you are 10 years from now? I think that's very important.
So I'm guessing, Emmet, you probably read it. Jesse, I'm guessing you read it. Bryan, no offense, I don't think you probably ever deep dived into it.
Into what?
But the New Universe.
Oh yeah, I remember the New Universe. Yeah.
Yeah, but did you read them?
Probably not deep.
Okay.
No.
I would swear to you, as what year was that? 25th anniversary. So 83, 88.
Yeah, in 87,
right
80,
around there.
no, probably 89.
Probably 14 or 15-year-old Dennis was reading that.
Yeah.
I don't know why people hated it. I think it was a lot of the people that were in that comic collecting zone 5 years older than us that just didn't get it. Because I really thought it was aimed. I mean,
Star Brand, right? Was that Star Brand?
Star Brand. I loved it.
Night Masters,
EP7.
Nymph.
Yeah.
Nymph.
Justice.
There were so many great titles in that, but I just don't think the industry was ready to give it the time it needed to find its audience. And that was kind of his second strike, and he was out. Because Secret Wars 2 kind of was a failure, and New Universe was a failure. And I think he got fired at the end of the first year of New Universe, and that's why they blew up Pittsburgh. That was actually the people who took over, because that was Jim's hometown.
Yeah, he didn't get along with a lot of creators too. Frank Miller didn't like him. He caused Frank Miller to leave Marvel and go to DC. I know Larry Hama had issues with him with the whole G.I. Joe stuff. I don't think Claremont and Byrne got along with him either. Like, there was a lot of people that did not like him because he pushed, like JC said, he had the ability to get books out on time every month like a machine. And that's why they didn't like him.
Well, and the corporate structure, the corporate structure loved that until he had 2 failed initiatives in a row.
Yeah. Funny how they let that run now.
Yeah. Can you see it right there? That's been on my shelf for months. Why? Because the Beyonder and Secret Wars is that important to me.
Yep. Yeah, I was going through my books about a week ago, and I came across this, one of my favorite books that I ever got signed by a creator, because I love when creators are on covers, and I
Marvel
love this
Age.
book.
Yep.
Marvel Age.
Signed. Signed.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, Jim Shooter was on in a lot of books too. Drawn, not his photo, but drawn.
Well, he on the back of every one of those Marvel Ages. Flip it around. Can you flip the back over?
No, the back is a calendar.
Yeah, and Fred Hembeck drew every one of those calendars.
Yeah,
and Jim Shooter makes appearances in almost every one of them. If you get a chance, go over to Facebook and read Fred Hembeck's tribute to Jim Shooter.
Well, we're going to look at a couple ones. I also want to go over Kelly Jones. Kelly Jones had a really good one. Let's go look at Fred.
And Rob Liefeld had a great one. Jim Starlin actually took the opportunity to kind of go after the people going after Jim Shooter in death and kind of calls them out.
So this is what Fred said about Jim. I owe an awful lot to Jim Shooter. When things weren't working out with his first choice to write Fantastic Four roast, he called up and asked me to helm the book. Since that worked out nicely, we wound up doing a second project, Fred Hembeck Destroys the Marvel Universe. The real bad guy in that book was supposed to be Jim himself, but he pointed out that the Marvel bigwigs wouldn't take kindly to seeing his name in the title, so he suggested I instead take the credit. And the logo. Well, I didn't fight him very hard, and here I am, decades later, one of the very few cartoonists with their actual name part of the actual Marvel comic. Jim did that, and when he edited the roast, he changed the dialogue in one panel depicting Nova simply because changes to the character had been made and that I was unaware of while working on it. That was it. As for the Fred Hembeck Destroys the Marvel Universe, well, my favorite part of that was originally a 48-page book, a lengthy framing sequence starring Jim as Marvel's EIC and the three consistents, Bruce Clark and Diana. However, the book was delayed just long enough to miss out on being published before Marvel let him go. It eventually came out in a truncated 32-page version with a cartoon Shooter in sight, which was a shame. Those pages, fully completed, are posted on my inert but still existent website. During the early 80s, I ran into Jim often as mutual guests at various Comic-Cons, but after leaving Marvel, I believe I only ever saw him once at a show. He was always friendly, and the two other times we worked together, he couldn't have been nicer. I'm very sorry to learn of his passing. Thank you, Jim. You made me a star. And here's the funny thing. For those of you guys that don't really know Fred Hembeck or might not like his art, Fred Hembeck is like the artist's favorite cartoonist. You know what I mean? Like
him and Sergio Aragonés.
Yep. The Rob Servation's episode where Rob breaks down the Fantastic Four roast is fascinating, man. Absolutely fascinating. Rob was such a fan of Fred Hembeck that he based his art. Originally, he was doing Fred Hembeck style. That comic that he created with his friends in high school that they printed looks like Fred Hembeck, but it's Rob Liefeld, and very, very cool. So,
and that's
also,
that's a book that I would tell anybody, if you have not read FF Roast, that's one of the top 100 comic books you should read.
Agree.
It is an amazing book, how he got almost everybody in the universe. Kree, Skrull is awesome because they're sitting at the same table doing a stare down. I mean, just this cool stuff going on that if you're watching the backgrounds, it's pretty cool.
This is a great story too. This is from Kelly Jones. Jim Shooter has died. When I got hired to draw comics for Marvel many years ago, Jim Shooter flew out to do several signings in my area and asked if I could come and meet him, which I did with great trepidation because he was the boss of bosses and I was just starting out. When he finished a signing, he asked if I'd like to go out for a meal anywhere I wanted and we could talk about making comic art professionally. I told him, let's go to McDonald's. We talked for hours and a lot about Jack Kirby. When it was over, he asked why I wanted to eat at McDonald's of all places. I told him very earnestly that I didn't want Marvel to pay for an expensive meal as I was a nobody. He laughed his ass off and hugged me, saying I was Marvel material. He was always very kind to me years after. God bless him. That is the type of story that I love, right? That is the story. And when he tells that story, you know what type of person Jim Shooter was, right? Like, fucking great story.
Yeah.
So I'll tell my first Jim Shooter story. Probably 93 or 94. I had just started doing comic book conventions. And I mean, because of that cover, because of Marvel Comics, I knew what Jim Shooter looked like. There was very few people who you knew unless somebody pointed them out to you, as Jesse will tell you about his Stan Lee story. So I saw Jim and I walked up. He was waiting in line at the bar. And I said, Mr. Shooter? And he's like, yes, sir. And I'm like, hi, yeah, I sell comic books, and I've been a fan for many years. I'd love to buy you a drink to show my appreciation. And he was like, well, sir, sure. And so I went up and I ordered 2 drinks for me and Jim Shooter. And while we're waiting for the drinks, I wasn't planning on it, but he just kept talking to me. And he kept saying, well, what was your favorite book? What did you like most? Who's your favorite character? He wanted to find out what I liked. And it had to be intentional. He crafted a story, and I'd seen him do it a couple different times. He crafted a story based on what I fed him, like a classic salesman would do. And he told me 3 different stories while we drank that drink. It would have been real easy for him to scoop his drink up. Thanks, kid. Blah, blah, blah. No, he spent the entire time while drinking that drink talking to me about the stuff that I loved and grew up on that he did effortlessly. And that meant the world to me. That was the kind of thing that I wanted to emulate as well from that point forward. And of course, the story he told me was about a certain person who wrote Alpha Flight at a certain period of time in comic history that I would later, about a year later, would have a run-in that was more than validating of Jim's story about how big of a dick this guy was.
Interesting.
Yeah, good guy. I mean, the first time I ever met him, I was running Phoenix Comic Con, and you go around and you introduce yourself, make sure everything's okay. Is this where you want to sit? You cool with that? And he stood up to shake my hand. I was like, holy shit. You think Mark's tall?
Yeah. I
mean, it was like, yes, sir, Mr. Shooter. All right, cool. I'm like just amazed. So I think I think what happens in the comic book world with that generation, it's like asking to take a picture with them. I'll give you a prime example. The picture of me and Jack Kirby at that event in 1983, only me and one other person actually got a picture with him because it wasn't something that you did back in the day.
Yeah.
You said hello, got your comic signed, and walked away. Now it's obviously different, but people like that who understand the value of taking time to spend with a comic book fan is very, very important.
Yeah. Big Jim Shooter, they call them, right? He also had such a, we talk about all the comic stuff, but let's talk about the toy world and stuff, right? ROM, G.I. Joe, Transformers, like he brought all those in.
He actually started way earlier than that, Brian. He wrote the DC adaptation of the action ideals. What is it? Captain Action in the 60s. So he was accustomed to working with the toy companies to make synergy between. So I don't know if that's what got him the Secret Wars toy deal, but that's definitely where his inspiration was from the earliest parts.
Yeah. So, I'm sure, that Adventure Comics, what, 347 or whatever it is shooting up in price. His Creator First, which is also a major key, First Legion superheroes that he did when he was 13 years old or whatever. So I was always a Creator First that I always wanted to get that I never found, cheap enough. But very interesting. We were actually, talking to get him on the show. He was supposed to come on the show, and within the last couple of weeks, we had, talked about bringing him on, and it just goes to show you that You know, sometimes you got to make sure you give flowers to the people while they're around. You got to always be thinking about that. So,
Yeah.
And this is just another milestone in the changing of the guard and the moving of Diamond's gone. You know, like we're starting to lose. You know, we lost George Perez, and we've lost so many
Yeah,
of the
Peter
greats.
David,
Yeah, Peter David, and now one of the great editors of all
John
time.
Beatty died too, I believe.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
Let me double check.
Well, he wasn't just an editor. I mean, he was a writer. He
absolutely,
actually penciled. A lot of people don't know he penciled a lot of stuff. Yeah.
It's interesting because that's the generation we grew up with. If I didn't meet John Byrne, I don't think that, or John Byrne, Jack Kirby, I don't think that would have been, something that I would have been looking at.
Maybe I'm wrong.
In that age. But I think traditionally we kind of hang out with our generational group. The McFarlanes, the Liefelds, the Politos, the Tushis. And so if you're going the pre-generation before that, the 91, 92, 93 gang, that's very interesting that you could still stick out and be relevant to that next generation.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
There's something to be said, just he was born in the 50s. He's literally the same age as my mom, which I never knew. And that probably blew my mind the most today. Was I'm like, oh my God, Shooter was the age of my mom. And he started in the 60s. And I often talk about, that generation of Polito, Liefeld, all of us, starting with that spinny rack at 7-Eleven, Slurpee cups, Saturday morning cartoons. This is the guy that mapped all of that out, that we all followed on a road that Jim Shooter paved.
Right.
And it created everything that, dude, is Liefeld without G.I. Joe? X-Force is just G.I. Joe, but with mutant powers. You know what I'm saying? There's just so many things that we rode down that road not knowing that it was paved by a man like Jim Shooter.
Yeah, and keep in mind it was paved through comic books.
Comic books.
Difference. Yeah, today you can pave yourself without comic books, right? Just socially, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. And so to be able to learn about him through comic books, I think is the great cool thing.
Right. We talk on this show about the lost generation, the kids of the 90s when Nintendo had taken over. Jim was already trying to win that generation. Valiant and Acclaim both went after that market and tried to get them into our world.
Right.
And they just weren't given enough time. What did they have? 6 to 12 months of content, Brian?
When it went to Acclaim? Yeah, I think
so. It was like Nintendo, Zelda, Mario, a whole rollout to get those Nintendo kids to read comic books.
Right.
But it only lasted 6 months to 12 months for all of it.
Yeah. Yep.
And then it was gone. Poof. And we lost him forever. And you look at Jesse, Emmet, when you buy those collections, you get all those Game Informer magazines, you'll get a handful of Acclaim comic books in there, and you get their video games. He was on to something. The industry didn't want to give him enough rope to keep going for those.
Right. Yeah.
They're still doing that, though.
Yeah.
Right.
They're still not giving people enough time for them to find their audience.
Yeah, it's kind of like Star Comics. I think Star Comics would have been great if they weren't pitching to young kids that were already reading comics.
Right.
And I think that was a big mistake of bringing out a book in 84, 85 that was trying to get the 12, 13-year-old and not getting the 21 up and old. And so everything's timing in those days. I love Star Comics. I thought it was great, but I think the timing was off. And I think Acclaim.
I'll tell you what, back in those days, I look forward to Peter Porker, the Spectacular Spider-Ham,
Yeah.
almost as much as I look forward to Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah. Yeah. I listen. My favorite comic during that time was Marvel Age. I loved
Yeah.
Marvel Age comics. That was my thing to get Marvel
And
Age.
that was
be able to
entirely
read
Jim
about
Shooter.
everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
And read about everything, not just, okay, I'm
Yep.
going to read about the Avengers or some mutant crap, but some cool things about everything.
Yeah.
And
It's
now
a
we
bummer.
see spinny racks. Well, they don't spin, but we see racks in
Oh, that's
convenience
a good
stores again.
skagoo.
Yeah.
Hey, what was the store that you saw that rack in, Emmett?
It's called Turkey Hill. It's mainly in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
And they make their own iced tea, their own ice cream. They're pretty popular. And I guess when I posted this, a lot of people posted that it was in their convenience stores also.
This is a big
Right.
deal.
So, yeah, this is huge. But Brian, can you zoom in on it?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this is
hold
where
on.
So for over a year on this show, we've been talking. Can you pull up the Dollar Tree story from a year ago also, if you can, Brian?
I can try.
It was on Bleeding Cool, and I'm sure Rich hasn't deleted it.
Here you go. You want me to zoom
All right.
in?
So remember we had the $1.25 Dollar Tree exclusive DC comic rack. Well, now it's $2.99, and you can see there's oh my God, that was scary. It's less Batman, more DC in general. It's 150% higher priced.
Yeah.
Okay. And then Brian, can you pull up the third image from Sheets that I sent you in the chat?
This one right here.
That's Sheets is big.
This one.
Sheets is huge. It's not Bucky's,
Yeah.
but it's like a minor Bucky.
Is this one?
And yeah, that one at Sheets.
There you go.
And those are $3.99, and those are the exact same titles that they had at Dollar Tree.
So you think they put another sticker on it?
I think they're just polybagging these things and selling them to whoever will buy them.
Right. And where I would come in and defend these companies is they're not buying the amount that Dollar Tree bought. That's
Right.
the first thing.
The
The other
profit
thing
margin they need is higher.
But Jesse, do you even know that they're buying them?
what, you think they're getting them free?
I think that DC made a deal with them to send them these racks on a contingent basis, and they have to send them money in 90 days.
I think there's a co-op thing here. I would be interested to see if the racks are in the same spot in every single store. Then I know that then it's a co-op.
Well,
situation.
look right here. This is between the baseball hats and Monster energy drinks at Turkey, whatever.
Yeah, Turkey Hill.
Turkey Hill. And then the other is next to the soda machine and the coffee maker.
Yeah, so I think this is a more of a co-op initiative by DC
co-op.
Comics. Yeah, and I think that's what we are seeing here. Listen, we all know why gum, Bubblicious or whatever, or Wrigley Spearmint gum is by the cash wrap. They're not trying to make money off that stuff. It's branding, it's co-op. They're paying a little bit more to be right there in the end, so you remember the brand. And I think when you look at something like this, I think the impression that you walk in and you see Superman, you see DC, I don't know if it's really about the comics.
It's not.
I think it's about that logo, and I think
That
it's
big
about
Superman.
the Superman brand.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
But guys, I'd be remiss in saying I kind of already stumbled across this 3 years ago when I opened the new concept store. The average Joe, the 999 people who went to go see Avengers but never touched an Avengers comic book, don't care if it's the current continuity with the hottest writer and the hottest artist. They want to see a cool cover. They want to see their favorite character, and they want it to be cheap. So I don't know that $3.99 at Sheets or $2.99 at Turkey Hill is that business model. $1.25 at Dollar Tree definitely was the business model, because I went to about 100 different Dollar Trees and never found a single one. So
Yeah, I
pushing
think
it up to $2.99, I think that's a huge mistake.
right, but it's not the $2.99 store.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so when you go into the dollar, well, it's $1.25 now, but when you go into the dollar store, you're not looking for $2.99, you're looking for $1.25. I think when you walk into a convenience store, I've never been to Turkey Hill, so I don't know the actual concept of the store, but they are trying to figure out what is disposable money for someone.
Right. It's straight up convenience. It's a straight up convenience store.
Yeah, we talked about it last week on the show, or 2 weeks ago. You could get a candy bar for $0.25. You could get a comic book for $0.25. You could play an arcade game for $0.25, and you could get a soda pop for $0.25. At one point in time, all of those were equal. Now, an average comic book is $5. A candy bar is $2. A soda is $2.50, and an arcade game can cost you $1 for a game of pinball.
Right, exactly. And keep in mind that Monster drink next to that rack is $4.
Yeah.
So unless it has a character on it, then it might be a little bit more. How do they keep my guy asked this, how do they keep the Monster drink cans cold when the drink is hot inside it? Anybody?
I have no idea.
I have been ripped off so many times thinking the drink is cold, and then I take a sip and it's hot as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways.
I think that the dollar stores or the $1.25 stores were the test. I used to, when I was broke and would buy shit at the dollar store to eat, back when it was really a dollar store, they used to have like stuff I'd never seen before. The first time I saw microwavable mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese.
You could make it in the bowl and put it in the microwave and make it. It was at a dollar store. And it was their tests to see if people would like it.
Did you ever get the giant caramel chocolate candy bar that like literally if you buy it from kids selling it to you door to door, it's this big and $4.
Yeah.
And at Dollar Tree, it was this big at $1.
Yeah.
Why,
I did a lot of food shopping back in the
Tree.
day at the Dollar Trees. But I think it was a test market for DC to see if they would even sell out of that kind of item. And
I'm sure some stupid bean counter was like, well, if we can sell out of it at $1.25, we can definitely sell out of them at $1.50 cost to Sheets.
But as for what Jesse said, people aren't expecting it to be $1.25 when they go to Sheets.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
some people won't even walk into a dollar store. I know people that won't go to a dollar store.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I can't tell you how many things I've walked into the dollar store. And then I get to the cash wrap and I'm like, hey, did that ring up at $1.50? Yeah. Oh, I don't want it. Right. And she's looking at me like it's only 25. No. It's got to be $1.25. I'm not spending no $1.50 on your markup. Right.
Look, I know it's totally off topic, but it's me. They have Texas toast back in the freezer section for $1.50. I think it is at Dollar Tree. And the same one is at the grocery store right around the corner from that Dollar Tree for $3.99 for the same 4 pieces of Texas toast. I'm going to Dollar Tree every time.
Right. Yeah. You just want to check the expiration date.
Yeah.
You gotta make sure they spell Texas right on that to make sure it's real Texas toast. Yeah. I've fallen for that trap a lot of times. Right?
Now, do you guys have ghetto groceries where you guys are at?
Yeah.
Ghetto groceries.
Is it called ghetto groceries?
No,
Food for less.
No.
Food for less.
Yeah. It's any kind of shopping place that's like low income.
I just don't refer to them as ghetto groceries because I don't want to get stabbed going into them.
Yeah, I'm not worried.
Oh my gosh. I'm trademarking that name if no one has used it for
That's your new store, Jesse. Ghetto groceries.
Yeah, it's an alliteration. Everybody loves alliterations. So yeah, the funny thing is you can go in there and it seems there's so many cheap things, but there's a handful of things that they don't seem expensive, but when you go to the regular store and check and you're like, fuck, I paid $1 more at the ghetto grocery for it.
Yeah.
You mean all the nutritious stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Donuts are only 99 cents.
Yeah.
So
12 donuts $1.
we'd be remiss. We got a lot to talk about what's going on with Diamond. There is so much new stuff coming out from all this
Bryan,
that it's unreal.
we had a pre-show, and we are not using that name anymore to talk about the shit that's going on.
Ad Pop or Sparkle. What do we want to call it?
Sparkle Pop.
Sparkle Pop.
Less than Sparkle.
Yeah.
This is what show number is this?
71.
Okay, show 71. Industry of Comics has decided never to use the D word ever again.
It
That
doesn't
name
exist.
No longer
It's dead.
exists. We need to stop recognizing that name. Ad Pop, you're at bat. You've struck out about 9 times.
Yep.
And you've hit one pop-up.
Yep.
Get your act together.
Yeah.
100%. You
And
should see the
there's
shit
still-
I got in
there's
the mail
still-
today.
Zero response from Less Than Sparkle about all the money that's owed to them, to the publishers, about playing chicken with retailers. But we've gotten 3 responses just this week in regards to retailers.
Yeah. Listen, we talked about it on Comic Book Drama Alert. I brought Dennis and Jesse in for Comic Book Drama Alert last Saturday or the Saturday before.
Two Saturdays.
After the whole interview with Heidi, and she kind of brought up the question, like, do you guys think there's something going on here? And after the whole playing chicken with idiots comment from the guy at Sparkle Pop,
The deposition.
It made me think, yeah, there is something going on here. And I kind of brought up the thought process that it feels like there's some type of collusion or some type of thing going on behind the scenes that we don't necessarily know about yet. And it stinks. It smells like sewage all the way out on the West Coast. You know what I mean? Like, and it's coming from Sparkle Pop and Raymond James or whatever the name of the lawyers group is. It just smells of something wrong. And here we go. You got all these publishers that are starting to say, what's up with our inventory? And now there's a problem. And you can hear it on the horizon. You can hear the war bands, starting to get ready. They're pounding that drum. And there's a lot of publishers that are going to start banding together, that are going to say, hey, we're stronger together than we are separated. We need to find out what's going on with our inventory together. And I think that's going to be a big story moving forward. Let's talk about this. Did you guys read this article about all this craziness about them? Basically, they filed paperwork to liquidate all the stock that they have held, unpaid on consignment, hundreds of comic book publishers, as well as objecting to action. There will be a call to delay the hearing to talk about this, and that the debtor entity has decided that the best time to schedule the hearing is the 21st of July. Well, it sounds like they have maybe moved that up because of this. This is a big deal, ladies and gentlemen. This came out right before we went live. Dynamite owed $1 million+ by Ad Pop. And because of this is no surprise, they're not going to be able to make payroll next week. They're not going to be able to do a lot of stuff because they're owed a ton of money, and they're not the only publisher. I mean, what do you guys think some of these other publishers? I mean, we had Ben Dunn on last week who said, yeah, we're not as much as that, but to us, it is that much. We're a smaller publisher, and $30,000 is $1 million to us, Yeah,
it's proportionate to the size of the company. So $1 million to Dynamite is a lot, is money, right? But the 30,000 is proportionate to Antarctic Press. So you can't say, well, they're owing $1 million and no, because to Anarchic Press, 30,000 is like being owed $1 million. I want to back up here a little bit, because where I get nervous when I read articles is not knowing how bankruptcies work. You can't just go with an article and say, and this isn't about Bleeding Cool, just in general, well, this is what's happened. Okay, but how does bankruptcy work? Bankruptcy happens. They send out a notice saying, we're declaring bankruptcy. You need to do an inventory count. You got 30 days to tell us what you're going to do with your inventory. Well, guess what happened? Publishers did not request inventory counts. At the end of the bankruptcy, this product is considered abandoned product.
Yeah.
So AdPop goes in and says, listen, we need to liquidate this product because we can't sell it and these guys don't want it. Now, what happened was a smart publisher most likely listened to our show and had to say a simple thing. It's also when you declare bankruptcy, you have to list inventory.
Yes.
And
I'll tell you what,
Yeah,
that's going to be the
asset.
thing that bites them in the ass was none of this was listed as inventory. And I think that might be what Alliance had originally thought was, oh, we get these huge warehouses full of all these things for that price. Cool. We can just start selling this stuff. And they had no idea the way Diamond's consignment deals worked.
Do you think that there's any kind of loophole in there where when the inventory wasn't theirs, it was the publishers, and then once they didn't request it, it was after the bankruptcy, and then it becomes
no. So no, that's not how it works. So basically, what they're supposed to do is that company would tick inventory at bankruptcy, saying, "Here's our assets. We have XYZ. Now these assets are consignment items." Okay. When AdPop ticks over, they also have to do an asset. They inherit those assets, right?
Right.
So here's the funny part.
And liabilities.
And the liabilities. The funny part is, and someone had shown it, and this is where AdPop had screwed up. They had sent them a payment, and that payment said for consignment items on the accounts payable to that company, right? So that proves that these are consignment items. And the only thing they have to do over the next 3 weeks is just request an inventory count. And then turn around and say, we did not get our inventory count at the beginning of bankruptcy. We didn't get it when you guys switched over. We are demanding an inventory count, and then we want the product. Here's the problem, Dennis, before you say anything. XYZ publisher says, we've got $100,000 in inventory there. AdPop turns around and says, okay, here's your $10,000 in inventory we have. Oh, no, we had 100,000. Okay, where's your inventory list at bankruptcy? Well, we don't have one. Well, then here's 10,000.
And conveniently enough, there's several things that happened during this entire bankruptcy that pointed to this happening now. First was everybody at Diamond was saying they were Kevin Bacon in Animal House. All is well. Remain calm. We're going to continue to sell books just like we always have. At the exact same time, they were not filing their monthly filing statements, which would list we have $32 million worth of publisher inventory sitting in our only warehouse. We have, this many outstanding debts. We have this much we've spent on electricity and staffing, etc. They neglected to file all of those. And then when Alliance ended up pulling out and everything was just dumped on Sparkle Pop and Sparkle Universe, they didn't have to finish those paperworks because it was just done. It was over. And then lastly, And I think this is the most damning for Cubic Zirconian, because I'm going to go with Dungeon's suggestion that we only refer to it as Cubic Zirconia or CZ.
Yeah.
Cubic Zirconian came out on May 15th or prior to May 15th and said, we are only going to honor from May 15th forward all contracts and invoices by publishers. And then a month went by and they still didn't honor any of those.
Right.
So they're already in breach of every possible contract going forward from May 15th under Cubic Zirconian.
Right, exactly. And keep in mind, that's what they're saying. You inherit debt, you inherit accounts payable, you inherit accounts receivable. So you can come out and say, we're only paying May 15th. That's semantics as far as the way you're using the name. Well, that's the old company debt. Well, guess what? You inherited that debt. That $18 million means you inherited everything. So I think at the end of the day, I think what I personally think is we strongly become loyal to people. Because why? Because they have been loyal to us. And then something happens and you forget to turn that loyalty button off. No matter what. It's like when Dennis said, everything's well, everything's well. Well, what is D supposed to come out with and say, everything's effed up, everything's effed up, everybody run to the hills, right? Obviously, marketing is to say, no, business as usual, not business is effed up.
Well,
so,
and Brian, do you have that? They've turned off. One of the other things that's interesting was I had talked to one publisher and they had turned off the internal portal that publishers could view their active inventory at Diamond weeks ago.
This is very
and now
interesting,
they've turned
right?
off.
Go ahead.
And now they've turned off the retailer side through Comic Suite. It's completely off. Nobody can count anything now because they control everything. They are playing chicken with idiots.
This is from New York-based graphic novel publisher Fair Square Graphics, calling Sparkle Pop thieves and bandits. And they brought receipts too, which is very interesting.
This is the receipt I was talking about. If you go up to the top, go up a little bit more. And what you want to do is see where it says highlighted. It says consignment vendor sales. The key word is consignment. You are officially saying consignment product is in that warehouse. That's all you need is right there.
Yep. But I will take umbrage with this. I doubt highly if anyone ever gave Diamond any inventory whatsoever and had zero shortage and losses and damages.
Well, here's the thing that is interesting to me. He says, at this point, I'm going to call Sparkle Pop thieves and bandits. We have not authorized this, and if this happens, I'm disgusted. How can we trust another big company with our most valued property, our books? The fact that none of the vendors had any official note but have to rely on journalists, us, Rich Johnson, Heidi McDonald, proves the level of contempt Sparkle Pop's operators have for their clients, us. And Legion of Comics in the chat says, honest question, why the fuck would anybody be messing with Diamond right now or Sparkle Pop right now? That's the thing. They aren't. They are not. This is a big deal and it's going to continue. I see, I don't necessarily want to say it, but I'm going to say it. I see class action lawsuit on the horizon. You know what I mean?
But Brian, I said it before last year's San Diego, and I'll say it before this year's San Diego. Last year's San Diego, I had a feeling, just with all of the movement in the industry, that there was a giant game of musical chairs.
Mm-hmm.
The music fucking stopped a month ago. Okay. And a whole bunch of people are going to be running around and talking to each other at San Diego. Every bar, every convention person is going to be talking to everybody. And they are going to come out of San Diego as a unified force to shove a giant fist up Sparkle Pop's ass.
This is another one. Ultimate Comics, a huge chain in the comic book industry, says They're refusing to buy any of the liquidation stock. Now, here's the interesting thing. Sparkle Pop's going to liquidate all those books that they have, right? Who's going to buy those books? And if it comes out that retailers buy those books, are those retailers going to get blacklisted?
Possibly.
I mean, what's going to happen? Because, it says here in recent days, I ran a story, Diamond, with Sparkle Pop. The debtor entity in this bankruptcy is applying for court permission to liquidate comic books, graphic novel, toys, games, and other merchandise held at the distributor on consignment for publishers. Sparkle Pop does not own this stock. It is meant to be held for convenience and speed of distribution. But if this filing goes through, Sparkle Pop will be able to sell it all fast and cheap with none of the money going back to the stock's owners, instead to the bankers who have kept the distributor going through bankruptcy. That's fucking stinky, man. That is so stinky and wrong and not cool. It says here, I understand that the publishers are talking to their lawyers and lawsuits are being planned. Fantagraphics has stated their comics are being held hostage, and Fair Square Graphics have dubbed Sparkle Pop thieves and bandits. But how will stores react? I hear that Ultimate Comics chain of comic book stores in North Carolina and now Florida has stated in retailer chat groups that they would refuse to participate in any such liquidation, saying that they, quote, will not be purchasing any Sparkle Pop comic stock from unpaid publishers, no matter how low they are liquidated at. Although I'm sure big box liquidators will be likely the target to dump the stock that is rightfully not theirs, aka Ollie's. He said, I spoke to Alan Gill, founder of Ultimate Comics, who confirmed the quote and then told me that he hopes this will be a motivator. Here we go. Here's the key, right? Dog whistle, right? I hope this will be a motivator for other shops to do similar. It's important that retailers not flood the market with publishing partners' liquidated inventory that the publishers would not be financially compensated for. I'm sure at some point, Sparkle Pop is going to start their liquidation sale of those items at aggressive discounts. I refuse to participate in that. And what he's saying is, and we're keeping an eye on everybody else. Shout out to Ronnie Strike for the $5 super chat. He says, I won a con costume contest as Galactus. Cosplay didn't exist 40 years ago. Shooter was a judge, and he personally gave me the $100 and a cool plaque. Very cool story, man.
That's awesome.
Wow,
Very cool. Very, very cool. I will tell you, cosplay did exist 40 years ago, and the only cosplay done 40 years ago was Star Trek.
And Wendy Peeney.
And Wendy Peeney.
Yeah, Wendy Peeney.
Oh, wait, and that underage girl that they did an entire documentary about.
Yeah.
But we're not going there.
Well, it's going to be impossible to not end up with those books, right? Because
Brian,
when they liquidate them,
message?
Go ahead.
Let's say I don't buy them at the crazy price that I don't buy them from Diamond Direct, and then I go to a con on the Sunday and go, how much are your long boxes? Whatever you got left, I'll buy them. I'm going to end up with those books.
Right.
I will have paid a different price.
No, I already have a feeling. I wanted to join in the chorus of Ultimate Comics and say I will not, at any price, buy anything sold by.
I completely disagree with you guys. I so disagree with you guys on this. Why aren't retailers jumping in and saying, we'll buy all the liquidation stuff, jump in, buy it all, go back to those publishers and say, here's your product. So instead of letting Ollie's get it, and
that's a much better
Turkey
idea.
Mountain get it,
Lone Star,
all these other places, why aren't we coming together to help out the publishers?
They won't, because I won't put a single penny in the pockets of people who are doing something like stealing the publisher's product.
So you would rather have them sell it to someone else.
Jesse, the buyer has already been tagged.
Let me finish my statement. And so you would rather not help the publishers out and let that product get out by saying, I'm not going to pay that 19 cents. I'm not going to pay that 25 cents when I can get all of Diamond Knight's product back. and say,
Jesse?
here's the product. What do you want to do? I just don't think when we say no, we're not going to do something when we have an opportunity to even make it better.
Do you think
for
that
those
that other people would do that though? I don't think they would.
No.
I think that you're one
No,
of the few
that's what
that
I'm
think
saying.
that way.
So what we're saying is we won't buy it, but even with the opportunity to buy it and get it back to the publishers, we want to do that either.
Okay,
So
I'm going to go.
getting
I'm
the
going to go
opportunity
completely
anyway.
out on a limb
I'll be right back.
with this one. Damn it, Brian! You're the one that I was gonna. If we had a friend that we tried to help get clean and get off of whatever he was on, okay, and he sold his car, he put it in Hawk, and the person was gonna the loan shark was gonna take his car and sell it. Do you help your friend by buying his car back and giving him his car before he's fixed the problem? The problem is, Jesse, we have spent the last 5 fucking months telling all of our friends, not only on this show, but to their faces, over the phone, you need to get your inventory. Why is your inventory still there? Why are you still there? Why are you still trusting that this is going to somehow turn out to be rosy? We had Ben Dunn on last week. I love Ben to death, but Ben didn't get off this show and the next morning go, yeah, I contacted a lawyer and he's got, no, I guarantee you he didn't.
Yeah.
You can only help people who want to help themselves. And if
the
they're
other
not
thing is-
willing to help themselves, I'm not going to put more money and effort into buying back their product to help them when they've had the last 5 months to contact lawyers and get this shit done themselves. I just won't.
yeah, but
and how
the
do
point
we
is,
blackball? If we're going to blackball people, why don't blackball the 80% of people didn't fucking pay their bill that owed
Yep.
Diamond millions of dollars?
Yeah.
That
Do you think
started
the
this whole
33
fucking
million?
thing.
Do you think the retailers that owe Diamond 33 million are going to chip in to buy everybody's stock and give it back to Nikki?
They're going to buy it
No.
because now they don't have the exclusive game because they don't have it being funded by Diamond. So they're going to buy all these quarter books and they'll have them on all the,
yeah, I understand the stance that you and Alan want to put out there, and I get that, and I think it's an honorable stance. The notion, though, is it's 2025, and you got those 50 comic book stores out there. They're then buy the stuff. They're then flood the market. They're then do X, Y, Z. They're then be at conventions doing whatever, whatnot, eBay Live. And if we had the chance to pull that product and get it back to the publishers, I think that would be great. It's not going to happen.
Right.
Because I'm not going to do it by myself. I'm not going to buy all that stuff.
Jesse, here's the thing, and I God love you, brother. It's already been sold. Okay. First of all, I guarantee you a lot of pallets probably disappeared from January to May.
Dude,
Okay.
I'm telling you, I know that for a fact. One of the people that worked up at the upstate one, Plattsburgh, that they were throwing it in dumpsters.
Well, on top of that, probably destroyed.
Right.
But if anybody, the people that we're talking about, Jesse, and you know them as well as I do, they went to Sparkle Pop in April and said, I'll buy everything in Olive Branch. Well, how much you paying a pallet? I'll give you $200 a pallet for every pallet in there. Okay, great. The second we have the keys, we'll figure it out. Lawyers, figure out a way we can sell all this shit to our buddy over here for $200. It was already sold.
Right.
This is just the paperwork to allow them to freight everything out the back door. Now, if you and I walked in and said $220 a pallet, they wouldn't listen at this point because they've already got the deal in place.
Well,
Right.
they're going to take all of it, right?
Right. They'll take everything.
That's
sure,
always
yeah.
the better thing.
Yeah,
they're
yeah, they're gonna
that's
take
why
it all.
Olives wins.
And think
Yeah.
about it. And think about it this way, guys. There's only, and Jesse knows, I know, there's only 3 people in this entire industry that have a warehouse big enough to move Olive Branch into.
Yep.
And I know one of them probably wouldn't buy it. The other one, I think, would buy it in a heartbeat. And I said it in the chat.
Yeah.
And
this is my point about this. I'm trying to say this politically correct without coming out as an asshole on this.
I'll be the asshole. Say it any way you want.
Yeah, I'll be the asshole in this time slot. I don't like it when people say something to make someone who does it look bad. I'm not going to do this because it's not right or whatever your thing is. But if you do it, you're the bad guy. Well, you know what? People have to pay their bills. People have to eat. And if they get an opportunity to buy something at a great price, then maybe they should do it. Dennis, they're not like you that have a huge warehouse and XYZ. There are stores out there that this might be their only opportunity to stay in business the rest of the year.
If I have to make money off of stealing from the people I'm friends with, I would rather you put a bullet in the back of my head.
Why are you stealing? Why are you?
You're not stealing. You're buying stolen goods, though, right?
Yeah, but Jesse, hold on. Right now,
wait a minute.
Hold on. Armed robbers.
Who said it's stolen product?
The publishers that are saying right now, that's my shit and I want it back.
Yeah, they're calling them thieves and bandits.
But because they abandoned it, it gives the right for
they didn't.
Great point. That's a great point.
They had to collect it.
That's a great point.
They were told all as well.
So you're telling me that, and you just said it.
Did they not have their eyes open? All was well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so at the end of the day, you know, everybody can't be on their high horse. Listen, this is the situation. This is where we're at. To say the stuff is stolen, it's not stolen. That's the company that called them thieves. I would talk to your lawyer and say, should we really be calling a company?
Okay, hold on. But all three of us own stores. Okay, and we all have a store across town from us. If somebody breaks into the store across town from you, and you've got $1,000 in your pocket, and that's it. You owe $5,000, whatever. And somebody breaks into your competitor's store across town and comes in and sells you a giant box of the best books you've ever seen. And every one of them has your competitor's price tag on it. And they're selling it to you for 10 cents on the dollar. Do you buy that? Or do you say, hey, let me call my guy and call the cops? Or call over and say, hey, did you get broken into last night?
Not only do I call the cops, I hold that product.
Yes. So why would you do that?
How does that even equate to a bankruptcy?
Because that's a
You got to stay within legalities.
Yes, and legally, all of the publishers are saying, you owe us money, you have our product, give us our shit back, and they're not getting any response from Cubic or Zirconian. Okay, so if you just pretend like you're not stealing it, it's not theft. Is that what Jesse's saying?
No. What I'm saying is legally, during the bankruptcy, they have the opportunity to get their product and get inventories. If they did not
we don't know that.
They abandoned their. No, we do know that because we would not be talking about this right now. If they would have done it legally right, we would not be talking about this.
But you guys are as well as I do. Everything in that warehouse is frozen until the bankruptcy is over.
Right.
That's the way it's supposed to be.
And when the bankruptcy was over, Sparkle Pop came in and told everybody. I remember the story. Sparkle Pop told everybody, give us your information if you want your product back.
Yeah, and they told those people that had the product there, if they owed them money, that they weren't going to get their product back unless they paid them their money. So they were holding that over there. Here's the thing. Both of you guys are right. But here's the problem. Not every situation is the same. Nothing is black and white here. There's a lot of nuance here from customer to customer to customer. What we do know is there's a lot of fuckery going on here. And it would be, in my opinion, and I don't know about you guys, but in my opinion, it'd be in the best interest of these publishers who have product out in the Sparkle Pop's warehouse to go, we need to band together and get this fucking sorted out.
Right. But also, Brian, we've talked to Ben. Ben's brother has sent Sparkle Pop numerous emails
Multiple of them
to get his money and to get his stuff, and they haven't replied to anything.
Right.
Yes.
And again,
Radio silent, which is
here's
bullshit.
the problem. You don't send emails. You send a certified letter that has to be signed for.
Well, we don't know if they
Right.
haven't done that. We're not sure, you know.
Well,
if
yeah,
they've
I'm
done
just
that.
going by what we were told. Me and Dennis were told that they were emailing them and calling them. You have to get something that in writing shows that they were contacted. And then you can come back and go to court and say, listen, here's the date they signed for it. We requested a 15-day response, a 30-day response. We did not get that response. I think at the end of the day, what we have to look at is not only just the bankruptcy, not only what AdPop is doing and screwing people here, is the lack of the publishers actually doing their due diligence to actually protect their inventory. In the end, they all can get their inventory. The problem is, like Dennis said, it's already gone. Yeah,
I don't think they can get their inventory. That's the problem.
Yep.
They want their inventory and they can't get it.
Yep. So
Yeah.
this is why it was moved to 3 weeks, because they know, AdPop knows they screwed up. The smart publishers can get whatever inventory is left. Unfortunately, no one got inventory counts.
But
So-
if Diamond didn't if they asked for an inventory count and Diamond had the portal shut down and their sales reps were already doing something else, how are they going to get that, Jesse?
Well, here's my point. Let me go back to the beginning here. I'm trying to figure out why Diamond did not have to submit an inventory count at the beginning of bankruptcy. That's where the screw up starts, because they have to show all their assets, consignment assets. If you close your store, you're supposed to let Monster Drink know you got 30 days to pick up your machine. If you don't pick up your machine on the 31st day, it's no longer theirs. That's not stealing something. That's me telling you got 30 days to get your product out. I think, Brian said at the beginning, this is fuckery. It is, because from day one, this was destined to go wrong. They will write books on this, on how bankruptcy should never be done. How many people got screwed? On the flip end, you guys brought up the stores that owe them $33 million. You don't see those stores calling AdPop right now and saying, hey, how did I get this check to you?
Yeah. Or passing that check on to Diamond. To Dynamite. I mean, to Dynamite. Like, all the product they got for free is the reason those other people didn't get paid. So, I mean, AdPop's not a good guy, but there's also a lot of other not good guys.
Yeah.
When there's fuckery like this going on, I'm sorry. One of the Gary Reed rules: deal with people you like. And right now, there's nobody at Sparkle Pop Cubic Zirconian that I like, and I refuse to give them a penny.
Well,
That's why I don't have an account at Lunar. It's why I won't have an account at Lunar. It's why I will not put money in these people's pockets ever.
Yeah, and so to go back, and because we got so off of the Dynamite thing. So what I understand from this article, and I know we're not going to talk about Dynamite, is they won't be able to make payroll next week, which also means, guess
They
what?
get a payroll loan.
But they won't be
If
able
they
to
already
pay
have it.
payroll at the following 2 weeks.
Right.
Okay, so if you can't pay payroll this week, how are you paying payroll the next 2 weeks? If you're still in the same situation. Very, very interesting. I'm interested on how Diamond And maybe it's the paperwork that's filed, how they knew Dynamite was owed $1 million. Is paperwork been filed? And so I think it's a very, very interesting concept that brand, that publisher has to do. They are with Lunar. They need to push forward. They need to find ways to get money in their coffers. They need to make that payroll and make sure they can make the payroll the next couple weeks and move on. Yeah.
Did you see Alex in the chat over here?
Yeah, he says Diamond reached out to my LCS a couple of weeks ago asking for money from an invoice 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would answer that question with, why is that company even asking? Because that's not their responsibility. That would be AdPop's responsibility. I don't know why AdPop.
I'm sure it was them. I don't think there's nobody left at Kubrick Zirconian to be the old guard asking for old money. This is the current liabilities transferred over to the new owners,
right? And
they're trying to get as many dollars as they can.
Right, exactly. And I would wonder how that's asked. Hey, you owe this much money. How much can you afford a week to pay on this? Obviously, the store is going to say, I need you to prove that I owe that. I need the tracking numbers. I need the XYZ. How, there's a lot that goes into just asking for someone to pay for something. And if you're going to ask one, you better ask them all.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure if
I
they got an email, everybody else got an email.
Yeah, Leshel said I got an email about $198 last week. So, which was a full shipment of damages they wanted to get paid for.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole point. A comic book store at $198, there's a reason why they didn't pay that $198. And I think we're at this moment of time that you got someone who's not giving someone their inventory. They're not paying people. They're then just call out of the blue or email. First of all, why are you emailing a store? Mail them. I don't get this emailing thing in this day and age. Sell them a certified letter saying you owe us $198, and then you go from there. There are stores out there that will probably pay the $198 not to deal with it and just get it done.
Well, that's a very big tactic with a lot of companies these days. It's been going on for about 4 or 5 years, where if a company is short on revenue, they will find an old invoice that may or may not have been paid and send that over and over again just to see if they got it. I don't know if you guys saw the story recently from Facebook, but there was a guy who would just randomly send Facebook a bill.
Yeah.
And they just kept paying it to the point where he got paid $200 million.
Yeah. Yep.
Before they found out he just frauded them.
Yeah.
And a lot of companies do that. My garbage company tried to send me a double invoice. And I was like, no. I got it right here. Fuck you.
Phone companies, when I was at 911, phone companies would charge us for phone lines that we closed 10, 15 years ago.
My insurance company did it. My insurance company charged me for a car that I got rid of a year ago. And I had to call them and show them the titles change that they authorized to get my credit back.
Here's what I will say. Whether or not you agree on all this and how you feel about Dynamite, what the ultimate thing is, we need Dynamite in comics. Dynamite.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are a lot of fans of Dynamite that are going to be of Dynamite properties that are going to be bummed if they're not around. And not only that, there are a lot of creators. There are a lot of people that work there that rely on this industry. Dynamite's a big part of this industry, and we need Dynamite in this industry. So if you're a fan of Dynamite, go buy Dynamite books. Go to their Lilo and Stitch Gargoyles, their Humble Bundle, right? Go sign up for their Humble Bundle. Go sign up for their they're doing a Pope Leo the what is this?
Trading card
14th
set.
trading card
Jesus
set, right?
Christ.
So, like if this is something that you're into and you're thinking about it, this is a way to help support them. That's my thought process on it. I get it that there's a lot of stuff out there that we're hearing about. We don't know what's truly going down, and one of these days we will know. And until then, it's very interesting. So
Yeah, I think what it's kind of like if you have your rent coming out and you have a check coming from the government and you go every day to your mailbox and the check's not there. And you go, okay, well, maybe tomorrow. And then a week goes by and you're like, maybe tomorrow. Well, you probably could have made that money over that last 7 days because of all the into the comic book world, because of all the platforms and the availability to create income for your time of need is very, very important. Dynamite's not asking for charity. They're saying, hey, we have some product, buy from us. If you want to support us, here you go. Here's some product that you then get. And he's then be successful and he's then find a way to do it. I think sometimes what happens is when you're the last man running up that hill and you're the biggest man running up the hill with the CZ company, you're on notice. Everybody's looking at you. They're not looking at the other companies, Antarctic Press and all these other companies. They did their list of 60 stores deal with Diamond. I only knew 3. You stick out. So your actions pretty much are in the forefront. And I think this is what's happened with them. So at the end of the day, listen, they're at Lunar. They got to get through whatever their payment plan is. And if it's 30 days, they'll get their first check or whatever it is. And I think they'll be fine. The other thing is he can't think about about the court thing. That's what his lawyers are paid for.
Yep.
He's got to push forward. He's got to sell some more Pope cards. Hopefully
some OA, maybe sell some original art.
Yeah.
He's got a ton of it.
Well, if he's going to do it, I hope he does it on Heritage instead of the EXP, man. Because he'll get way more eyeballs on it at Heritage, Nick. So,
absolutely. But Heritage only comes up when it comes up.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah. There's so many ways to do this. I think at the end of the day, listen, I think, and people watching this, if you're watching me and Dennis and we're discussing something, that's what our industry needs. It needs people that have opinions to talk to each other. And at the end, smile and let's go get something to eat. But when you don't have those tough conversations and get your opinions out, that's why some of these companies are where they're at. So, and crazy.
Yeah. Warriors for Info TV says, so is Free Comic Book Day up for grabs to interested parties? I don't know if we've heard anything about Free Comic Book Day, but we have heard about CGA. It has been bought. Did you guys see this?
That I did not. Who bought that?
Skyrush
CGC?
Marketing of New York City and Long Island posted a press release saying that they had been selected as the highest bidder for CGA, the diamond-owned collectibles grading business. CGA offers authentication of collectible toys, action figures, and video games. So here we go. CGA, a big asset that was one of the assets that we said, when we first started talking about this, that Alliance Entertainment would be able to utilize, is off the board. And I would love to hear what's going on with Free Comic Book Day because we haven't heard anything about that.
Yeah,
So,
I think. Go ahead.
Go back to that company. Sorry, I was sending a link to somebody.
Yeah.
So who's this company that bought it?
Somebody out of Long Island.
Skyrush. Skyrush claimed that they had bid $1.65 million, but others were throwing around figures from $50 to $80 million for the whole caboodle. So this looks like the original. Is this the original guys that wanted it?
This is the guy that announced that they won it before coming back around and having to recant that they won it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to see how that plays out, listen, this is all very interesting. Not only is it affecting the big publishers and the big entities out there, it's affecting a lot of the smaller publishers and smaller creators. And one of our favorite creators and also an indie publisher, Josh Blaylock, is joining us, ladies and gentlemen. Josh Blaylock. Josh, how you doing, brother?
Hey, man.
Good to see you.
How's it going, guys?
Howdy.
I want to
Juicy
ask
stuff
you,
today.
how is all this affecting you? What have your been thoughts on this and this whole inventory thing? What do you think about all this?
Enough to just kind of dig into what the fuck is going on. Yeah, it just seems too intentional and shady, and anytime anyone's vague like that, it's first you lean towards is this thing just big organizations moving slowly, whatever, try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But it was really after I haven't listened to, I'm driving and stuff, so I haven't listened to stuff, so forgive me if I repeat stuff. And I sprinkle lots and lots and lots of allegedlys all over.
Of course. Yeah.
All over this.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, I just started looking up this Joel Weinshanker guy, and he's part of 40 LLCs or some crazy amount of LLCs. There's which is, hey, if you got a lot of businesses, that's one thing. But the someone needs to do a huge investigative piece on it or something. He reminds me, from what I've seen and from the companies that he's been involved with, I think one of which was Hastings.
Yep.
There's things that repeat where it's this crew or whatever has been involved in other consignment bullshit before, where this is the plan. You go in, allegedly, steal the consignment inventory. It sounds to me just as shady as one of these leveraged buyouts where you go in. It reminds me of the comic book wars with not actor Ron Perlman, but the Revlon guy who bankrupted Marvel in the 90s. You come in, you leverage, you have no money.
That's what NEC has been doing. This is their game. They've been buying up companies in trouble. That's why they have so many LLCs. They don't even absorb them so that they can dump them at any time they want.
Yeah.
But they get all this product.
It's the classic scene from Goodfellas. They take over the bar. They order all the booze on credit. They sell the booze out the back door for pennies on the dollar, pocket the cash, and burn the place down at the ground to make sure nobody can file the receipts and look up everything.
You remember the Danny DeVito movie? Was it Other People's Money?
Other People's Money. Yeah. Buggy Whips, one of the best speeches in the history of movies. Buggy Whips.
Yeah.
But it's I just thought, I haven't seen that story out there. I think someone might have just started reporting on it. But there's publishers are oh, what's really going on? Or retailers are confused, and it's now let's just skip to the chase. This is the plan. This is what's going on. Get your stuff, out of there. So I've just, because I got nothing to lose, really, I've kept my stuff in there. I got a request today asking if FOC dates were okay for the upcoming week. And I said, oh, so now I'm gonna get a PO? What? I said, you know what? Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Let's just see. But I didn't make the big announcement oh, we're out of there. But I only have one book right now in there. So but
can I ask you a couple questions, Josh?
Anybody who's genuinely waking up every day man, I really hope I figure out what happens today. I'm just saying look at that.
You're thinking what we're all thinking, Josh. 100%.
Yeah.
When Heidi was on a few weeks ago and she made that comment, hey, do you guys think there's something fishy going on here? It made me go, you know what? Yeah, fucking A, there's something fishy going on here. There's,
It makes me think of, there's a classic story. I don't know, I might have this wrong. I remember hearing a story about Suge Knight, not a good guy, but back in the day, there was some distributor that went under, some other label that went under. It might've been a label. And they just all rolled up with baseball bats and stuff. Like, hey,
Yeah.
just like, we're here to get our stuff, you know, hey, how's it going? And we're just here to get our inventory. And I'm like, man, someone's about to do that to these guys.
I'll tell this story because I don't think I've ever told this story on the show. I executive produced one movie. It's called Witch Hunter. It stars Gunnar Hansen and Gloria Ann Gilbert. I was the executive producer. We had a distribution deal. We sold it to a company out of Arizona, and they produced hundreds of copies of the movie, had purchase orders. We knew how much we were getting. And the day before our release date, the company filed for bankruptcy, and all of the cases of our movie got put into the bankruptcy auction. And they ended up at truck stops across the West Coast for $5 each. And I never saw a penny. Director never saw a penny. Nobody ever saw a penny because our product got thrown in a box and thrown in a warehouse like that one guy's comic book store, you know, and just got sold off at an auction.
Right. So, Josh, let me ask you this. When they contacted you about the FOC book, who was it AdPop that contacted you or the old company that contacted you?
It's the contacts are like, they're still Diamond email addresses, and you know, you're still getting contacted by some, you know, and it's kind of a due diligence thing that they should do, where it's like, hey, this is just reminding you, it's like a courtesy. FOC's coming up, is this good? But like that to me says either A, it's operations continuing as normal by staff that doesn't really know what's going on. They just hope they can go to work the next morning and keep their job. So they're just doing what they're supposed to do, not knowing that this is not ever going to be fulfilled.
Yeah.
And the company hasn't gotten around to like shutting that down yet. Or it's intentional and they do hope that you ship your stuff to them so that they can collect it all. And I the way that it seems like these guys operate, I'm feeling like it's probably the latter.
Right.
That I think this is, to which makes it even more, a little more insidious. So I'm just, you know,
Has anybody ever contacted you with the name AdPop?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, why would they?
Yep.
So Josh,
if I had a bunch of inventory there, sorry, go ahead.
No. I'm just curious though. Did the company formerly known as Diamond owe you money before January? Did they owe you any money between January and May? And are you owed any money since May 15th?
A little bit. So I dodged a bullet with the pre-Diamond bankruptcy stuff. Like, it's not a flex. It's because like I didn't have anything coming out that they owed me for at that time.
Right.
But then I cautiously sent them stuff after that, and they've actually paid. You know, so and then I got orders in. There's a book right now that you know, something drastic would have to change for me to send it to them. So kind of heads up to people that ordered it through them. It has Circuit Seduction Revenge, a new one shot. Got surprisingly good orders from them, like post the bankruptcy announcement. And then I told my rep, like, this is going to be delayed. I don't know if you're going to have to make it returnable or whatever, but I just can't send it to you guys until I get the lunar orders in, because I don't know what's going on. And he said, yeah, that's cool. The lunar orders were really solid too. So I'm thinking like, man, this is a symbol of what, there might have been some overlap, but that's a symbol of what the industry could look like with two really solid distributors. That was exciting. And then all of a sudden, like, May 15th thing happens. I had an invoice that I actually literally sent them like on that date. So, and I didn't actually get the letter because we're a PO vendor, not a consignment vendor. And so we never even got a letter. We read about it in the press that, you know, the old company is they're claiming that they have to pay the old bills, and whatever it was, mine was like right on the date. I said, well, can someone clarify to me, like, is it what's invoiced or is it what's due by that date? What would be specific? Nothing. So, you know, it's just, there would be an answer if it wasn't shady.
Well, and one more follow-up to that. I mean, as we all know, publishers send an overprint, usually to the publisher. If 1,000 copies are ordered, you print 1,200.
If it's a consignment vendor.
Right.
Okay.
In my case, I can see what the orders are that come in, and I can see that they choose how much they over order.
Okay.
So the PO that I get, I might throw in some extra on top as a courtesy, but you're actually not even supposed to do that because they're planning to receive a certain amount.
Right.
They've already calculated in their extras.
Right.
But I used to be a consignment vendor and get those weekly reports and all that, and that's how they're clearly like just stealing that shit. Like if I had a bunch of inventory there, I'm not saying I'd be like some gang rolling in, but I would be there with a truck with more than just myself, like politely, like we're here to get our stuff, very insistently, and like the people that are working there that are like don't even know what's going on. They're not.
Yeah, they don't care. Yeah,
this truck ain't moving from this dock until you load it with my shit.
Yeah, and then if the cops came to say you got to move, and the tow truck came, I'd call Dennis Barger to put it on video.
And since you said that, I think you need to hit that unfiltered button.
Okay, let's get into it. Here we go.
Let's go.
At least they could at least tell people like.
Most valuable commodity I know of is information. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree. All right, let's continue.
I think I said all the unfiltered stuff. Now I have to.
Yeah. Oh, here's. Let me put it to you this way: at what point do you run this as a businessman versus, you know what, you're effing me, this is what I'm going to do? Where are you at this point?
Can I pause you for a second, Jesse? I think it's the point at which he comes on this fucking talk show to talk about all this.
Well, and it really is like I got nothing to lose there. Like I don't, I've got the PO that sucks that I can't send it to them, and I potentially have the PO coming to me for a new, which actually is the Mercy Sparks Daddy Issues #1 that I noticed the orders on that were nothing like, clearly people are pulling out and not ordering from them now. Because I can see enough of like behind the scenes that's way down from normal, and the lunar stuff is pretty solid. So, it's just weird, and it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
It just shows such a clear disdain and disrespect for like the whole space, and it'd be a lot more respectful for them to just say what we're gonna do, and if you don't like it, go F yourself. Like that would be.
Do you still have access to all of those vendor tools that you used to have at Diamond that is now?
Yeah, the ones that I got in January of 2004 that haven't changed since January of 2004. Yeah.
I mean, sure, we're operating off of Windows 2000, but
what?
Yeah, they've never been up to date, like super accurate since COVID.
Okay.
It just went off the rails ever since then. Like when pre-orders are brand new and coming in, you can see it. But as far as like what they actually received, what's like, that they received stuff and shipped it out, because you'll see it hit all the stores and everything, and it'll look completely different on the back end for some of that shit. Or it'll say that they have a shortage, and you're like, hey, do you guys have a shortage of this? You need us to send you more back stock? And they'll get back to you, oh no, we still have like X amount. It'll look like there's -5, and they're like, oh no, we have 120 on inventory, we're good.
That's one of the things that I've heard quite a bit over the years, here and there, is that happened a lot, where not only would they go, hey, we're showing they have a shortage. Oh no, we're sitting on, so many other copies. What do you mean you're sitting on so many other copies? Like thousands of copies of inventory are sitting in there.
Well, that's one of the complaints that a lot of publishers had, Brian.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So they would tell you if you shipped them 1,000 units and it showed -10, and you'd be like, okay, so you sold 1,010, and they'd be like, okay, well, cut me the check for 1,010, and then they would cut them a check for 1,010, and then 2 months later they'd be like, oh, you owe us X amount of dollars for these 200 units sitting on this pallet, and you'd be like, and the publisher would be like, wait a second, you said I had 0, and you said you sold 110 or 101%. How do I owe you storage fees for something that's not supposed to be there?
That's the one good thing about being a PO vendor is you don't deal with any of that bullshit.
Right.
It's very good. Here's the piece of paper. Here's the email. This is what you're buying from me. I'm sending this to you. It does. You're not in the same game though when you're a consignment vendor, and that was a whole different thing. Where like the funny thing Diamond would do is, when I had like 400 line items at a time, they sent us paper reports that were clearly generated from a spreadsheet.
Yeah,
but they would only send paper.
Right. Sure.
FedEx paper. So,
right.
That's partially why they ended up where they are now. But yeah, the new stuff's just kind of like, I'd say like, look, if you got inventory there and there's any way, if you're near there, if you're located around there, any way you can go, just show up and get it. That's what I would do. And it's like, I think they're really relying on people not like knowing how to just show up and deal with the bully. So.
Absolutely correct. When was the pattern of business where you said, hey, something's going on here? And I'm not talking about bankruptcy. Was it a couple years ago? Was it a year ago? 8 months ago? Last San Diego Comic-Con? Where did you see the pattern kind of change in the conversations?
I'm not sure I follow.
Okay, so with Diamond, was there essence where the conversation changed more than just business, where there started becoming concerns in your conversations of where they were going?
Sounds like COVID was that time, right?
Yeah, kind of honestly, things never really everybody was crushing it, but like at the same time, but things were just never quite as organized again. It felt like after that. And then, it just seemed more loosey-goosey, I guess, for technical terms.
2019 pre-COVID, you had one of your biggest books ever, the AOC, the AOC book.
But even that was one of the last bastions of like before, of distribution being sort of like, despite all the global press for that, orders were like pretty kind of mid. But then the web store was going just absolutely insane. So a lot of this, like I've got the experience of like having the larger volume titles and all that stuff. So I know how these things work, but I haven't had that much product going out. So I don't have the learning curve. If you were to throw 50 titles at me and everything, I don't know if I would even want that now.
Yeah.
but like, I don't know, whatever advice I can offer to anybody. I guess what it is I'm very tiny now, but there's a lot of publishers with a significant amount of inventory, with significant amount of books who've never encountered anything like this before, are not sure what to do. And I've been way above where they are now. And that's, where like, I think the big boys already kind of know how to handle it, but
life lessons.
Like,
yep.
Just
what
no
advice?
one's coming. These guys aren't coming to help you. I don't think they have any goodwill to help.
No.
Just get that, accept that now, and do what you got to do. And
what advice would you give people like Ben Dunn, like Nikki Barucci, guys you've known for your entire career? What advice would you give them right now while they're going through this?
Oh man, I don't. I can't imagine they already aren't trying to just get a hold of their stuff, But
well, let me ask you this. Getting hold of your stuff. Let's dive into that a little bit. Getting hold of your stuff. What does that mean? As far as your business goes, are you really needing that backstock, or are you looking to go forward and sell your future stuff? Or is there an essence of, I got to have my backstock because I can't let them have it?
I think everybody's in their own different, their own different, situation. There might be people that have like might really need that to get by, you know, like
But
it
you
might
can't
mean,
turn it fast enough.
yeah, and it might mean them having to go back to press on something that they have tens of thousands of dollars worth of stock on that they, you know, were planning on. Maybe they
That's
just
a
hit their
great point.
break-even point, and now they're planning on selling through the rest of that over the next couple of years, and now they have to go back to press on it again.
That's a great point.
You know,
Yep.
like because a lot of times, like, you know, when you print books, you know, you'll go ahead and you're like, you plan ahead, like, you know what, I'm not going to make anything back off this for like the first year. It's almost like starting another little business, little mini business, you know, and you're like, okay, then the book will be profitable and then it'll sell through. And then we've got like 2 years of selling through all that extra inventory. And hey, if it all sells faster, great. But we've planned to be able to get through this. And then you do that with multiple books, and you work a long time to build up that back stock and that backlist. So when something like this goes down, you lose all that inventory. It can really set some people back to square one. So that's where, like, I mean, I had this situation where Diamond liquidated a bunch of my stock without telling me.
Ooh.
I had to call them out on it in an inventory hand count. Then I found out they liquidated 10 times worse to somebody else bigger than me, and it was just like, what are you going to do?
Where did it get liquidated to, Josh? Do you know where it ended up?
You might have some of it, but it wasn't anything I sold to you directly.
No.
You know, oh no, I found out about some of it because Tales of Wonder was one of those companies that was buying stuff back then. And they mentioned that they had found some things. I think maybe one other person might have mentioned they got some stuff. So those kind of things did happen, where if they were inundated with stock, sometimes they would just need to get it out of there and move it, and hope that, and again, you know, you're getting your paper spreadsheets in the mail.
Yeah. And this is going back to what Jesse said earlier, which is, they may say you have $100,000 worth of inventory there, and when you go to back that truck up, they give you one pallet of $20,000, and you go, "Where's the other 80,000?"
And then they give you the money they got for it. I don't think they're stealing that. They weren't stealing that, but they were like, in that scenario, they were just like, I would have like potentially liquidated to somebody else and got a lot more out of it. But that was a whole other bigger situation of other things factoring in to deal with. But now when you deal with Barnes and when you deal with like Simon and Schuster or Ingram, these giant mega distributors, they do have language in their contracts that they can sell it off for whatever the hell they want after a certain point. So you just kind of have to eat it. Like, you have to know that going into it. Most of the big box retailers, Diamond at the time at least, didn't have that agreement. So I'm like, we're getting into kind of like really old, irrelevant stuff now that I don't even know if it applies anymore.
How long were you with Diamond, with that old company?
99, 2000.
Well, yeah, I started self-publishing through Diamond 90. Well, that company was 90. It was 2001 was the first book released, not through Image actually. There was some black and white stuff that went out right before that, and then when we went solo was 2000, the very beginning of 2004. So that means pre-orders were coming in, you know, at the very end of the year 2003, and that was all the way till now.
Right.
So, but I was a consignment vendor until around 2010,
right,
when I announced that I had to pull distribution from Diamonds because I found out about not just that liquidation, but a whole bunch of other stuff.
Right.
And I was like,
well, I was in
a situation a lot of people are now where I'm like,
did you forget in 2009, I was there when you had to deal with them taking your money for Barack the Barbarian?
I was actually at Dennis's store.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fun times.
Yeah.
Well,
so it's kind of like,
how does that, and Brian, go ahead and ask the question, because you're going to ask the same question.
No, go ahead.
Oh, no. So now you got this new venture and you're moving over to Lunar and Massive and all this great fun stuff. Do you feel energetic? Do you feel, oh my gosh, this is a new path? Or do you feel, okay, this is what I got to do?
I feel like it's go with the flow, baby.
Hell yeah.
It's just like, that's what it has been for the last few years for me. And I'm excited. I wrote that Breaking Into Comics book that I just put out not long ago. All I write about in that is when you really, really look at the whole big picture, the medium has never been stronger, and in the collective retail situation seems like it's got so much more potential than it's ever had, and it's really showing signs of strength. So there's so much to choose when you're entering in the comic space. You got to really, now it's like, where does your comic fit in? What audience does it fit in with? And where are the customers for that? In some of that's stores, some of that's web comics, some of that's Kickstarter, some of that's cons, some of that's like, bookstores. It's just, the pie is much bigger now. And the part of the reason I did that was because it was an excuse to dig into all the data and question some of my own assumptions. But like, if you strip out all of the sales numbers, all the way back to like the early 2000s, or pretty much, and you took out all of the manga, all of the, the other, stuff outside of like what would you be considered regular comics, we're still selling as much as we were. It's just the pie got collectively bigger, and what we think of as, traditional comics or Western comics has become a smaller piece of a much giant pie. While it's actually stayed the same though. Like, it's just like the restaurant decided to start baking bigger pies. You're still eating 5,000 calories.
Right. And you are correct on that, because the data points from crowdfunding isn't added into the distribution numbers. And if we take all those numbers from all these platforms and you saw the actual real numbers that are going out monthly, it's amazing.
Well, I'll go one step further, Jesse.
Yeah, I did it.
Oh, Jesse just had a signing at his store. Those 100 Mark Spears will never hit a single list of sales except for eBay sales.
Yep.
And Mark's going to do that 5 times over the next year. Those numbers will never hit.
Yep. You're 100%
like,
right.
The Kickstarter thing's interesting. I almost wish they would start to keep a metric of it, like where it fits in the ranking of publishers, because it's harder to do because anyone's sales now. So ironically, Kickstarter has very public sales. Right. And all you have to do is you just say like, okay, what if they raise $20 million? It's way beyond that. I think it's 30 million. Let's just say 10 million.
46, 46
just
million.
Say like $10 million worth of Kickstarter sales. About 30% of that, maybe less, but is say 25% is shipping.
Yeah.
But, a lot of people do that outside of that.
Well, and it's the higher unit cost too.
Right.
Way higher unit cost.
No, but so you say, let's say $10 million. Let's say 22 million is shipping. So really it was $8 million in sales. Out of that, how many, how much of it, like what would the wholesale have been? The wholesale would have been 40% of that or 35% of that. And then out of that, you factor in like how many like actually got shipped and stuff, and how many didn't get chargebacks or whatever. And that's how you can come up with the number of how big also you have to, you also need to factor in, like, let's say on average, 10% of it's digital. And then maybe another 20% is actually rewards and stuff like that. But after that, you come up with like the real number on what the how many millions it is.
But I think those numbers are crunchable if somebody gave a shit about our industry enough to crunch them.
Yeah, they're really easy to crunch, and it just gives you a nice number. Yeah. So if you looked at it, I think they would have been comfortably in the like nearing in the top 10, climbing up like easily.
You just have to look at the number of backers.
All the data.
I mean, it doesn't. Forget about how much money it is. Just look at the number of backers. Yeah. That's the part to me that says it's an absolute different buyer than walks in my store. Maybe 2 out of my subscribers get a Kickstarter now and again, but most of these people are people who don't go to a comic shop. They're either supporting the artist or the writer, or a combination of both. Maybe even the publisher. Some of them may be family members. Who knows? But like. Not like when we're talking about the Transformers that went insane, but it's not a lot of production. There's not a lot of pieces. Like when Batman, Absolute Batman sells 200,000 copies, there's
Did
really
they really
about
sell
100,000 people.
200,000?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's very tough because you're taking actual sales, actual turn rates, actual
Yeah.
sell-throughs versus wholesale.
yes.
And that's always a tough thing to do.
I want to talk about you bring up crowdfunding and Kickstarter and all that stuff. You have a monster of a Kickstarter going on right now with the Disavowed, right? The pilot's edition.
Yeah. Thanks,
Uh,
man.
yeah, this is a
Shameless
big deal.
self-promotion. Woo!
Well, no, not
Yeah.
even that. I mean, we've been talking about this series for a while, ever since it got
Oh, yeah.
started. You know, I've told you before, and I talk about it all the time on this channel. My favorite GI Joe stuff was when you guys were doing it, you know, with Image back in the day, and then on your own. It was so good. It was amazing. You're good at doing that storytelling, and I feel like this can be that style of storytelling. In the way that I love it. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm loving what's going on in the Energon universe right now, but I also love what you guys did back then, and I'm really looking forward to this. It just got put on as of this, post here, that it's one of the projects we love, which is a big deal. I want to talk more about this. One of these nights we got to get you on like a Wednesday night, so it isn't about industry, and we can talk about this project
Yeah,
that we
happy
all
to-
love.
It's got 12 days to go, so let's set that up.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. We'll figure it out. Yeah.
Well, I had a question. So Josh, we all chewed the same dirt. We love GI Joe, Transformers. You know, we grew up as 80s kids reading 80s Marvel. What does Jim Starlin, or I'm sorry, what does Jim Shooter's legacy mean to you? And did you ever have interactions with him?
Man, I mean, legend. Like, I literally just got the opportunity to meet him and talk to him like 3 weeks ago.
Oh wow.
So
holy
if I had
shit.
not, I just felt lucky to do that, and I wanted to just shake his hand and talk to him. He was really close to where I was at JD Sutphin's show in outside of DC, the Dulles Expo Center, Big Lick Nova. And yeah, I mean, I've heard all the stories and everything, but I've never really knew him personally. But I've heard a million times the Larry Hama story about Jim Shooter, picking him last and all this stuff, and then going over to Hasbro and how G.I. Joe came about. But only one time did I hear the Jim Shooter version of that story on this podcast, Talking Joe, and it was way different. And I got to say, a lot of it made a lot of sense. So,
Yeah.
I just kind of told him, like, that story kind of cracked me up because it's so different.
There's always
But,
two sides to every story, man. There
yeah,
is.
and he had
If
some
not
funny
more.
stuff to say, and then that was pretty much it. We just chatted, and he clearly, like, you could see he'd gone through what he was going through, but he seemed like upbeat and conversational, and like kind of shocking. Like, all of a sudden, it's like, wait, what? He passed, So
Yeah.
and
It's crazy. So many stories out there with him, which is the crazy part that we're going to be hearing over the next couple of weeks, which is going to be very bittersweet. Listen,
same thing happened to me with Neil Adams, where, like, I all these years we were next to them conventions, never really talked to him. Just randomly happened to have like a 45-minute conversation with him before a show one time, and then, like, he was gone not too long after that. So I feel fortunate to.
yeah.
Okay, JD Vance.
Yeah. So here's the interesting thing.
Got it.
Take it back.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brian.
So if you're an old comic creator and you're
Don't talk
looking
to
to
me.
cash out, just call up Josh and
Yeah,
meet
exactly.
him somewhere.
Have him come over
Holy
for a
cow.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, Josh, let's plan on getting you on. Not this Wednesday, but the following Wednesday before that Kickstarter ends. We'll plan something. But before you get out of here, I definitely want to talk about this. We kind of hit on a little bit. The Mercy Sparks stuff that is coming out, the daddy issues. We talked about, we saw this on FOC the other night. One, Mercy Sparks has got a fan base out there that is just stoked for it to begin with. But holy cow, this cover, man, is
Dude,
fantastic.
that's my man. That's the Joel Herrera. That's he's been doing covers for us for over a decade, and I'm selfishly glad that he's not a megastar yet, but I don't know why. It makes no sense to me. Like, why is this like? This is the cover that the same artist. Well, he's done a number of Mercy covers. He did the cover that took everyone by surprise for that book called The Encoded.
Oh yeah, I think
Came out a few years ago,
yeah.
and all of a sudden was on eBay for like $200. Yeah, I mean he's just a fucking beast.
Yeah,
I've got that cover sitting right next to my Queen News of the Day album and the original Pulp magazine that original art shows up on.
Yeah, well, yeah, thanks to like you guys for covering this, and like I have seen it popping up in other places, people noticing it. So I think we might be on the cusp of another one of those kind of moments. Except, oh, sorry, I got my alarm going off. The that one took everybody by surprise, because I know they just weren't paying attention. This one's like cover A, front and center.
Yeah,
the orders on it were pretty strong. And second to that was the Pop Mons cover, which is a cover C.
Yeah,
but it usually it's like people order on laziness, and like, you know, cover A is always the biggest, and then it goes down from there. That cover C is by far the second highest in that whole
cover
group. So I think
I don't know why.
just no idea.
Yeah, why would I love that cover? And talk a little bit about the Massive Indies program, because that's another thing. You know, we have these different distribution models and these things that are working together, and it's kind of like, you know, a tool belt. You want to use every tool have every tool at your disposal to finish your job or to do your work. And Massive Indies has kind of popped up. Talk about, you know, so far how it's been working with Massive Indies and what your thoughts are on it.
I mean, it's pretty, you know, it's pretty simple. Like we're completely autonomous. And we, you know, our contract is with Massive Indies, not with Lunar, but we're still preparing and facilitating like the whole process. The printer has to, you know how to ship the boxes and everything. Or when we ship from our warehouse, I extrapolated all of the important information out of the Lunar shipping guides, and I have like that printed on paper in the inventory side of the warehouse. Like, you know, this is how this is how this is done. You know, so we handle all that just like we would if we were shipping it under our own account. It's just, you know, for whatever reason, I could never get Lunar to carry us, even when we had like Trailer Park Boys and all these other, you know, pretty hot properties. So thankfully this worked out, and I'm in sort of a I think it's a fair deal. And I know they've been on here explaining it before, but like it's a very simple baseline fee. You know, they're going to pull out of it. That covers their costs and everything, and then that's a really fair small percentage that comes out to be part of that whole program. Other than that, it's not any different than being, you know, with a distributor yourself. And that's why it's not a creator. It's not like a indie creator thing. It's you kind of have to be a publisher that knows what you're doing to be part of that program.
Right,
Otherwise, it'd be a nightmare for them. And I mean, what a hell of a business model to fall into, you know, like just a nice, clean nuts and bolts business that helps everybody. And
tell us while we're talking about this, you're also part of Philbo, right?
Yeah, well, I was going to say on the Massive thing too, I'm in a weird position because I'm also I have that Disavowed as one book that is not through Massive Indies. That's an actual Massive published book.
Oh,
it just has the Devil's Due Studios branding on it because why not? But like,
yeah,
they wanted the strength of the brand, but they're publishing that book, so that's a whole different deal. They're managing that Kickstarter, they're fulfilling that. They're you know, I provided, like, me and Pop provide all the art and the finished book. I provided all those covers initially in the beginning, and then from here on out, you know, they're going to be setting up some of the retailer incentives and Comic-Con exclusives, you know, all that kind of stuff. So I've been trying to transition into working with other publishers. It's just, you know, I'm doing it too long to like, I don't want to lose my autonomy. But just as I really plan to go hard on saying like, you know what, I'm ready to fully step into just partnerships. Then COVID threw everything off, and then now the distribution sagas are happening. So I'm like, okay, we'll just like, so I'm just going with the flow right now.
Well, there's something to be said about your brand, man. The Devil's Due brand is a brand that a lot of people love, and it has something behind it. You know, that's a big
Thanks.
deal.
Yep.
So
thank you. I've been trying to dial it in more too. So in the last year, you know, really adopted a more streamlined focus on supernatural, sci-fi, high concept action, and it's, you know, fearless, unfiltered stories for those who dare to indulge.
hell yeah.
And it's just like kind of a vibe, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
And Philbo, Dennis, we're like, yeah, well, I'm open to distributing anywhere. You know, the industry's healthier with more options. So other than that, you know, I don't really have anything else that I can add, because we just met them and are soliciting stuff, and they just dropped their catalog today. So
2 questions. Are you going to be at San Diego, and are you going to be at New York Comic Con?
Right now I have no plans to be at either one of them, because this year I really swore off a lot of cons unless they were paying me to go out.
Yeah,
sure.
Yep.
Or if there was some other real specific reason, and otherwise I'm just making comic books and staying home.
Yeah.
I did get offered an option to go into San Diego with with Massive, but it's just like we got real deadlines right now too, and I'm like, I still could show up. But
yeah, you know, the one thing I want to say, what show is this? 72?
71.
71.
71. So I'm predicting Josh will start showing gray in show 175 is my prediction.
Josh is still the kid.
Yeah. Well, listen, I hope you figure out a way to get out to San Diego this year. We'd all love to see you there. Let's plan on getting you on next Wednesday. Not this Wednesday, but the following one. I'll reach out to you, and we'll get that plan. Maybe see if we can get you and Pop on.
Start a campaign to start off campaigning at Massive to bring me out.
Hey man, we're starting it right now. Michael, get Josh out to San Diego, brother. So
there you go.
All right, man. Thank you. Yeah, I can't wait to be back on, and we'll talk later.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Josh. We appreciate you, brother. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for popping on, bro.
Take care, man.
Later. That's what this whole show is about, you guys. Being able to have creators, publishers, industry vets just jump on.
I gotta give you the backstory on this. So Josh was listening to the show on his way home, and he texts me. He's like, "Dude, I don't know if you've talked about this yet, but I think these guys are shady, and I think they've always been shady, and this is their deal." I'm like, "You want to talk about it? I'll bring you on the show right now." He goes, "I don't know. Let me think about it. Hold on. Let me get home, and I'll text you when I get home. Are you still going? Yeah. You know what? Fuck it. Let's go. Send me a link."
I think there's a lot of people that are starting to feel that way. They're starting to see, you know,
here's my point about this. My challenge to publishers are stop writing stuff. Find a show to go on to show your passion about not just your brand, about the industry and others. It's easy to write stuff, but come on a show. That is the true measure of a business owner, when they can come on a show, take the hits if there are hits, and don't throw out softballs. And I think Josh is very good at that. And there obviously there's a confidence factor. There's plenty of people that we have invited on that have chosen not to come on because of maybe not being able to handle live. And there's no difference from live than being at San Diego Con or New York Comic Con.
Well, I'll say this. Right. I'll say this to everybody out there that is part of this industry that has maybe misgivings about coming on the show because it's live, we'll treat you good over here. Listen, we want this show to not only be informative, but to be entertaining. And there is something to be said about hosts of a show and how they treat guests, and how they make it easy for everybody. We're going to treat you well over here. Don't worry about that. We're going to do our best to treat you well over here to where you don't have to worry about that. But more importantly, there is a seat over here for anybody. And there's a lot of people that have reached out to us over the last couple of weeks, and we're going to try and get as many of you guys on as we can. And we appreciate you guys reaching out to us. This is why we created this show. It's one of the main reasons,
This show is a voice. There's lots of voices, but this show is a voice. And if you're not willing to use your voice to champion your cause, then you're voiceless. And there's so many of these publishers that, like, I don't even know that company that you showed earlier, Brian, that said, they're thieving creeps or whatever the quote was. But give us a call, guys. We'll put you on. You tell us exactly what it is. There's been a lot of the publishers that are in this boat right now that have never contacted us, never said, hey, let me come on and explain why I think Diamond's screwing me or Cubic Zirconian is trying to steal my stuff.
I have talked to so many publishers that have semi-committed and something stops them. And the reality of live stream is you can't erase it, right? It is there. And some people just haven't made that pivoting mark to go. It's like to do live stream. It's like when Brian said at the beginning of the show, I chose to start paying attention to influencers and all that. It took me a long time to realize there was this whole new realm. And I was unsure that, okay, can I run with these young guys, right? Yeah, I'm excited and I know how to do X, Y, Z, but can I run with those guys? And then at some point you just say, you know what, you got to do it. So I think getting your voice out and speaking, not just for your brand, not just for your team members, but from your heart itself is, I think, very important. I think people will run up that hill with your flag more too. So,
yeah, I agree. People not only want to buy because of the product, they also buy because they like the people that are involved in the product. That's a big part of, the whole world right now. So that being said, you guys, we are 2.5 hours in. I want to talk about pickups because this has become a big part now. This isn't just normal pickups, you guys. We aren't talking about these things these guys have gone out and got for their personal collection. We're talking about retailer pickups, things that come in these guys' store, things that these guys pick up to resell, which is one of my favorite parts of the show every week. Who wants to start?
I got nothing this week.
No?
Unless people want to see like 10,000 trade paperbacks.
Right. Well, tell me about that.
I'll go to my
Paperbacks.
warehouse if I want to see 10,000 trade paperbacks.
I mean DVDs.
Yeah.
Which
is that I gotta ask you, is that a Birkenstock hat you're wearing?
No, this is
Woodstock.
This is
Woodstock.
This is a weed distributor up here in New York. It's called Woodstock.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I was like, why are you wearing a Birkenstock? I mean, I'd wear some crazy hats, but Birkenstock? All right, my pickups. I got some cool stuff. Well, let me show you this first. So I picked up this.
Shout out to Billy Tucci.
Billy Tucci. First appearance of she, folks. And the first appearance of she on this, I'm trying to get without the light messing it up. She comes in like a badass. What's cool about this, it is signed on that page with a certificate from 1997 from MegaCon. So I thought that is a great dollar bin pull. So I was excited about that. Rose Besh, very hard to get exclusive or a variant. So I picked up that again in a dollar bin in the store. So that was kind of awesome. I didn't know this existed, which is a Halloween ash can, but I believe this was in a DVD case or maybe something. It came in a box or a display case or something, but that's where that Halloween came from. I don't know which is better here. Holy cow. So I'm going to say we are then go with this next. Mark Spears, Monsters, signed to the store.
Oh,
Very
that's
cool. So very, very cool. I got that in. I'm glad he spelled Jesse right, or else I'd be pissed. So very, very cool. And then my big, big pickup, which I kind of showed last time I got it, but I'm so excited about it because I finally found a frame that matches the World Peace Tour from 1983 Iron Maiden.
I saw that in your back room. I saw that
Yeah,
in your back
yeah.
room.
Yeah, so I finally got it all. I finally found the frame size for it, which I just happen to be wearing the shirt too, from my good friend Derek Riggs, which hopefully we can get Derek Riggs on here sometime. It's very hard to understand his English from the UK, but hopefully we get him on. So I was very excited to get that in.
Nice.
That's my pickup.
Dennis.
Brian, I don't even remember everything I bought, but this came into the store today. So that's a clear Game Boy Color, works perfect. That's a Game Boy Advance, the red version, which is a very sought after variant color. A bunch of original boxes for Nintendo's, plus a bunch of Game Boy or Nintendo Game Boys, and a bunch of loose Game Boys, some accessories, etc. And then, but this was the big collection. Actually, this was part of two collections that came in. I just kind of shoved them all in one box. But if you can zoom in on that.
I can't.
Okay. Basically, you've got the cream of the crop of Game Boy games. You've got a Zelda, you've got a Resident Evil, you've got a Spawn in there. You've got PSP games, PlayStation 3 games, some really good ones.
Metroid Prime.
But the biggest part of this was an amazing Mega Man, Zelda, Pokemon, Nintendo DS collection that came in at the end of the day, 30 minutes before I was leaving.
Wow.
Well, actually, right when I was leaving, but I stayed over for 30 minutes to buy it. Amazing collection. Yeah.
Love it.
I love getting those collections that kind of I either have sold out of all those things or I have never had a lot of those DS games. And now that just builds the inventory better.
Right. You know, one thing I want to say, today was the first time I bought something coming in 9 months. So it came into the store, and the excitement versus going out to a estate sale, knowing what's there. My buddy calls me, hey, I got this, blah, blah. The excitement of someone coming in saying, are you buying?
Yeah.
And I think that's the cool part that Dennis just talked about. He didn't wake up, eat his Wheaties, and come to work and say, man, if I just got XYZ, we don't know what's coming through that door. So, yeah, very, very cool stuff.
Yeah, you could get a great week like Emmet had last week, and then you can have a dead week like Emmet had this week.
Right.
Yeah, I bought a lot of stuff, but it's nothing really exciting.
Yeah.
Some of the cool things was packs of skateboarding packs.
Okay.
From like 83, 84. They're all stickers for your skateboards.
What?
Yeah, that's awesome. Cabarello,
cool,
all those guys.
But no, there's no like actual skateboarders in it. They're all like designed, drawn stickers.
Okay.
Yeah.
They still go for a little bit, but
kind of like Pog
unopened
art.
packs. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it also had like all the non-sport stuff from the 70s. So King Kong and Buck Rogers and like, $20, $30 sets, nothing crazy. The King Kong set goes for like 150, but still like nothing's, outrageous. And then like a ton of, I'm buying DVDs. I think within the next 5 years, they're going to be what everybody's buying.
Yep.
Not bad. Okay, I've got a couple announcements. One, this week, gonna have a sale on eBay Live on the 3rd. So come hang out with us there Thursday night. And then of course on the 4th, you guys can find me on Whatnot for a big sale over there. I'll have a bunch of big books, a lot of major signed stuff, a lot of slabs, raw, all kinds of craziness. So make sure you guys follow Beyond Wednesdays for that, for the information on that. I'll be dropping all the information when we go live on the community post, and I dual stream it. So you guys, if you follow Beyond Wednesdays on YouTube, you hit that bell to be notified for all notifications. You'll get notified every sale that I start, and then you guys can join us. Second, tomorrow night, big show on Beyond Wednesdays. I'm warning everybody right now. If you watch the show live, do not miss tomorrow night. We are going to be offering one of our big San Diego Comic-Con exclusives, limited to 250 copies, a amazing variant. We have allocated a certain amount specifically for Beyond Wednesdays supporters, so you guys can get it before it sells out of San Diego. I'm telling you, it's going to sell out at San Diego. If you're a G.I. Joe fan, if you're a Suspiria fan, make sure to watch the show tomorrow night. I will also be dropping that same link in the Discord for all of our Discord supporters. We're only going to be allocating a certain amount of those. We will be sending them out after San Diego, but this is our way to thank all the supporters. We appreciate you guys, and you guys get an early shot at it. It's going to be a major, major book.
I have one more pickup.
Hold on.
Keep everything going.
We are going to be also having Suspiria join us. So Suspiria will be on the show with us tomorrow night. And then after that happens, Aubrey Sitterson from Free Planet will be back on the show to talk about Free Planet and everything that's going on there. He's been one of our most talked about guests in the last year on the show. Amazing creator, really sold his book very well to everybody, and it was a big book on the secondary market, and it's been a much talked about series. So come hang out with us tomorrow night for the Suspiria news, for a chance to get your shot at those San Diego Comic-Con variants, which are going to be super limited, and Aubrey Sitterson. Dennis, go ahead, brother.
Okay, guys. I don't get excited too often, but last week my buddy came and said, "Hey, we got to have lunch." I was like, "All right, cool." He goes, "Yeah, I really just wanted to have lunch because I wanted to give you this. And I remember you wanted this like 15 years ago, and I found it." And I was like, "Oh, crap, what is it?" So I started unwrapping it, and I reached my hands inside the bubble wrap.
It's not a dildo, is it?
No, it's not.
Just want to make sure.
Why did I tell you people that story? And I reached my hands into the bubble wrap, and I felt it, and I was like, wait a second. I saw the silhouette, and I was like, wait a second. And I want the chat, and I want my co-hosts to tell me if they know what this is, because I knew what it was instantly.
I have no idea.
Some kind of kangaroo.
Does anybody know what this is?
It's a big no.
Okay, guys, this is the little kangaroo that was on the nightstand that held Butch's gold watch from Pulp Fiction.
Oh, really?
It's on the little kangaroo. It's on the little, on the little kangaroo. I had to have gotten it.
That's cool.
Very cool.
And my buddy, he's like, dude, my grandma had that at her house. And I was like, dude, I would kill for one of those because I love Pulp Fiction.
Yep.
And he found one 15 years later and just was like, pull the trigger. He knew how happy this would make me. And it's going on the shelf right after this show. I just got it. And yep, it's the little kangaroo from Pulp Fiction. And then I've got to buy a watch to put on it.
There you go.
I did forget one pickup, sort of a pickup. I went and seen William Sadler. He's now doing music. And so I went to a show. It was only it was a small crowd, like 58.
Bill Sadler, Death himself?
Yes, Death himself. Shawshank.
Naked Tai Chi in Die Hard 2?
Yep, Die Hard, the whole nine. And he signed all I bought whatever albums they had left, because it was going to charity. I bought all the art albums and CDs. So he signed all of them. So I have like 10 signed vinyls and 10 signed CDs.
There you
That's
go.
cool.
Nice.
And then I
more-
sent you something.
More
Dennis.
big news
Yep.
for the 13th straight year, I believe. Is that the case?
Yeah. Yep. I am officially nominated for the 13th time for a Eisner Award. You're looking at the most. I have now broken the record for most nominated loser of all time for San Diego Spirit Award, and I am so excited about it that I just wanted to get it out there and let you know. 34 stores were chosen this year. We already know that's going to come down to 6 stores that have good friends and great places.
Yeah.
And that's fine.
Oh,
But
yeah.
yeah, a lot of good people on there. So very, very cool. I just wanted to mention
Ooh,
that.
I wonder who gets the diamond seat on the panel.
Yeah.
Who? The who seat?
So the Eisner,
We got to get a diamond swear jar.
You're right.
So the panel is 5 people who decide who the finalists are. One of them is the last year's winner. Another is randomly chosen from the publishing community.
Yeah.
Another one is Joe Ferrara from Atlantis Fantasy World, who started it. Another one is the representative from Diamond, and it would be a different person every year. And I forget what the 5th person is. However, I don't know who's going to get picked to be that last person.
Did I ever tell you the Joe Ferrara story?
No.
So Joe Ferrara was my mentor when I first came into comics. And so, he's mentoring me and all this stuff, and we become great friends. Well, Joe is now, using the cane, and, it takes some time to walk and all this stuff. So me and him are up for best customer service. Oh, no. Best team spirit award. And I end up winning, but I don't know actually Joe's in it. So I see Joe and I'm like, I want to say hi to Joe. And this guy who can't walk is walking as fast as he can. I can't even catch up to him. I finally catch up to him. I'm like, dude, slow down. I just want to say hi and all this stuff. And I'm talking. We're very excited about winning the team award. And then I walk away and the rep goes, you beat him out for that award. And you're trying to chase him down. And I never saw a guy walk so fast with the cane to avoid someone. I just thought it was funny. But anyways, I had a great time on this show. I think it was fun. A lot of topics, and it's always good to get your voice out there. So,
well, and let me just tell the chat. So Joe Ferrara, Atlantis Fantasy World, is the comic book store that was featured in The Lost Boys that the Frog Brothers worked at. And it's the comic book store that I saw in The Lost Boys and knew that there was a place called a comic book store for the first time. So it's kind of part of my origin story. I love Joe. Joe's a great man.
Right. Yeah, great man. Brian, you should do some research on the very first comic book store in a movie or TV show. And it's actually not a comic book store, but it's a place that sells a lot of comic books.
There you go. All right.
Do some research for next week. We'll leave everybody hanging, but you won't believe what the TV show is.
Adios, guys. Thanks for hanging. We'll see you tomorrow night. Peace.
Good night, everyone.